Hearing this sound, the two quickly looked up. They saw a tall and upright man with a beard standing at the door, wearing a fisherman's hat and a pair of toed sunglasses. The whole person exuded a sense of mystery. Who are you? Shu Luo pushed his sunglasses and said the name of his new identity, Li Luo. Shu Luo didn't move, still standing at the door. Compared to the Kurt couple sitting on the sofa, Shu Luo standing there was full of oppression. Shu Luo continued, if you inject this bottle of plasma, you will fail. Kurt clenched the bottle in his hand and gritted his teeth. No, I will succeed. I have succeeded once. Shu Luo shook his head. But you have only succeeded once on an animal. What kind of success is that? Without multiple tests, there must be a lot of unknown results in it. Science is about constantly experimenting, summarizing rules, and ultimately testing for successful results. It's not about doing one experiment and gambling on a very small probability among a large number of unknowns. You will always lose in gambling. And if you inject it, you will lose miserably. You rashly transplant a large amount of unstable reptile genes into your body, which will only lead to one result. That is, you will mutate and become a huge amount of reptiles, a huge amount of lizards. At that time, the genes of the beast will affect your mind, you will become a true beast, you will lose your humanity and be full of animalistic instincts. You will develop extremely strong aggressiveness. Do you think that after injecting this thing now, you can attack anyone? Hearing this, Kurt looked at his wife. Shu Luo nodded slightly, that's right. So, maybe your wife will pay for your mistake. Kurt heard this, his face turned pale, and the bottle of plasma was put back on the coffee table. He grabbed his hair in despair. If the plasma didn't work, he would completely lose a way to solve the current predicament. He let out a painful sob. Marcia beside him also felt heartbroken when she saw this. She grabbed her husband's leg. Don't be like this, Kurt, let's think of another solution. At this moment, Shu Luo standing at the door finally moved. He walked into the room and closed the door. He sat on the chair opposite the Kurt couple. The chair was old and made a creaking sound. Shu Luo got straight to the point. Don't be too anxious, I will help you get rid of the current predicament. I will give you a job and a salary so that you won't have to worry about your livelihood. At the same time, you can continue to optimize your plasma. As long as you are not impatient, you will succeed. Hearing Shu Luo's voice, the Kurt couple in front of him brightened up. Kurt hesitated. Who are you exactly? Why do you know so much about my situation? Shu Luo calmly said, Li Luo, the largest shareholder of Osborne Corporation, will soon become the absolute controlling shareholder of Osborne Corporation. As for why I know so much about your situation, I naturally have my own ways of understanding. You don't need to know about it. After speaking, Shu Luo opened a tablet he carried with him. He showed his shares to Kurt, proving his identity as the largest shareholder. Kurt's wife widened her eyes when she saw this. She never expected that her husband's boss would personally come to their home. And he even wanted to give her husband a job. The dilemma was suddenly resolved. At this moment, Martha's heart was filled with surprise and excitement, tears shimmering in her excited eyes. Kurt widened his eyes and said, You're the new shareholder? As an old employee of Osborne, Kurt naturally knew the shareholders of his company. But the person in front of him was definitely not one of them. So, this shareholder was new. He just couldn't understand why someone would acquire its shares when Osborne was already a mess. He asked in confusion, Osborne is in such a state, why would you still accept it? Shu Luo spoke up, since I chose to take over, it must be profitable. I believe it still has potential and can be revitalized. If you're willing to come back, I will appoint you as the head of the research department. I will also assign a research team to you, making you the research leader, and provide you with top-notch equipment and a research lab for your studies. Upon hearing Shu Luo's words, Kurt was extremely excited. But then he calmed down and asked, what do I need to give in return? Shu Luo replied, hand over your plasma technology to me, and in the future, you will specifically develop more things for me. Shu Luo knew the general idea of Kurt's plasma technology, being able to deduce a rough equation, but he didn't have the specific data and formula. So he needed Kurt's plasma technology. After considering for a moment, Kurt nodded. He had nothing left now and was in a difficult situation. He not only had no money but also faced discrimination from his mother-in-law. Most importantly, his wife had to suffer with him. He didn't want to live like this anymore. Kurt firmly said, Boss, I'm willing to give you the plasma technology. And I'm very grateful for giving me this opportunity. I will work hard. Kurt's tone was extremely sincere. After finishing his words, he stood up and quickly walked to the side. From inside the cabinet, he took out a USB flash drive. He handed it to Shu Luo and said, Boss, the plasma technology is in here. Shu Luo took the USB flash drive and nodded in satisfaction. The crucial thing was in his hands, 20% of the shares would become his. In addition, he also acquired a genius biologist. Whether it was in science, business, or work, he couldn't handle everything alone. So, he needed some assistance to help him share the workload. At this moment, Shu Luo was feeling quite pleased. He said, "Kurt, come to work tomorrow. I will give you some instructions then." Kurt straightened his back happily and said, "Yes, boss." Then, he thought of something and asked weakly, "Boss, can our company really make a comeback? With the current situation being so bad?" Shu Luo casually found a piece of paper and wrote down the derived equation for the weakened and improved version of the plasma technology. After finishing, Shu Luo turned and left. Kurt looked at the few lines of derived equations, his eyes slowly brightening, and then he took a deep breath. Oh my, the boss is truly a genius. Martha, who was next to him, was somewhat surprised upon hearing this. After all, Kurt, as a biological genius and a leader in a certain field, had never praised anyone like this before. At night, Shu Luo put down his work. He picked up a freshly made plasma bandage technology. It's time to buy the remaining 20% of the shares. Blood plasma technology, in addition to being able to produce adhesive bandage technology. Shu Luo also deduced that if it is optimized and improved, it can solve the side effects of blood plasma and produce extremely powerful healing abilities. It can even achieve the rebirth of broken limbs, but according to Shu Luo's deduction, this kind of medicine is disposable. If he takes this medicine, his self-healing ability will become stronger. The principle is to allow the blood plasma to fully function, heal the wound, and then use a special serum to remove the spider genes and the healing ability they bring. By combining the two, a powerful self-healing potion can be obtained. However, the specific details still need further research and experimentation. Being able to optimize a powerful self-healing potion through blood plasma technology, Shu Luo is very excited. After all, it can further enhance his self-healing ability and improve his survival ability. However, the most urgent task is to first obtain that 20% of the shares. Shu Luo, holding the blood plasma adhesive bandage technology, drove towards the last shareholder's house. Under the night sky, the neon lights of New York City flickered, exceptionally dazzling. Like a city that never sleeps, Shu Luo drove the car that came from out of state and rushed on the road. In no time, he arrived at the shareholder's house. It was a detached villa. Definitely a high-end villa area, not an ordinary detached house for the middle class. As soon as he got out of the car, he saw a man in his 50s walking towards him. He smiled and reached out his hand. "Mr. Li Luo, right?" Shu Luo nodded. He introduced himself. "I am James, a director of Osborne Corporation." He greeted warmly. "Come, let's go inside and talk. I have prepared some snacks and wine from a private vineyard in Chile." Chile is the only country in the world that has immunity to root aphids, a true paradise for grape cultivation. The wine there is exceptional, for James. Because of the Osborne shares, he has been extremely worried these days. First, the Osborne stock plummeted, and then there were assassination attempts against Osborne shareholders. The police have not yet figured out what's going on. This has made him very uncomfortable, so he has been wanting to sell the hot potato in his hands. But no one is willing to take over. This has made him very anxious. So Shu Luo's appearance made him very happy. Soon, Shu Luo and James sat on the sofa. There were some exquisite snacks and wine in front of them. James rubbed his hands excitedly. "Mr. Li, I heard that you were willing to offer $13 million to buy the shares in my hands, is that right?" The shares in James's hands are currently worth about $14 million in the market. Although Shu Luo's offer is lower than the market price, James is willing to take a loss and sell it. Shu Luo shook his head. "That's just my initial price. You also know that these shares are a hot potato now, whoever takes over may have trouble. So I think $13 million is still a bit high. It needs to be lower." James showed a hint of difficulty. $13 million is already lower than the market price. If it goes any lower, I will be at a loss. Then he gritted his teeth. "Mr. Li, you first give a price." Shu Luo held up a finger. $10 million. Upon hearing this, James's face changed slightly. "Mr. Li, this offer is too low. $10 million, I can't even recover my initial investment." James gritted his teeth. "How about this, Mr. Li? I'll give you a discount, $12.5 million, how about that? It's already nearly $1.5 million lower than the market price. I've already suffered a big loss." Shu Luo's expression remained unchanged as he shook his head. James took a deep breath. "I'll lower it even more, $12 million. It's the lowest price. I can't go any lower." Shu Luo said, "Let's settle on a fixed price. 11.1 million, and I'll acquire it. Upon hearing Shu Luo's offer, James quickly shook his head. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Your price is just too low. He stood up, waved his hand to indicate it was impossible, and had a determined expression. Shu Luo didn't say anything, maintaining a calm expression as he locked eyes with James. Both sides remained deadlocked for a while. James forced a bitter smile. You really are a master negotiator. James sat dejectedly on the sofa. Deal. How do you plan to pay, with a check or a bank transfer? Shu Luo spoke up. I can't give you the money right now. Once I gain control of Osborne and make a profit, I'll give you the money and also provide you with interest. If I give it to you within 6 months, I'll pay you 10% interest, making a total of 11.1 million. If I give it to you after 6 months but within a year, I'll pay you 20% interest, making a total of 12.2 million. Upon hearing this, James immediately laughed. But his smile quickly disappeared, and his face showed a hint of anger. Mr. Lee, are you intentionally playing with me today? A wolf in sheep's clothing? You want my shares without offering a single penny? And you expect Osborne to make a profit and return my money? Can Osborne really make a profit? James stood up and said coldly, Mr. Lee, it seems you have no sincerity. You can leave. Shu Luo remained motionless. He simply threw the documents in his hand. Osborne will definitely make a profit. With me at the helm, it can regain its vitality. You can take a look and then make a decision. You need to understand that holding Osborne shares right now is a troublesome matter. You don't want to hold onto them, do you? James picked up the documents and glanced at them. After a few glances, his gaze froze. Can this really be achieved? Shu Luo said, there are test data behind it. You can take a look. James flipped through the pages and took a deep breath. A band-aid? It can accelerate wound healing, even achieving 3 times the effect? Is this possible? So, is this the new product you've prepared? Shu Luo nodded slightly. James looked at the documents in his hand and took a deep breath. Alright, let's sign the contract. Upon hearing this, Shu Luo felt a slight joy in his heart. Finally, it was settled. He finally had 20% of the shares in his hands. Combined with the shares he already had, he was now very close to controlling 51% of Osborne. Shu Luo nodded and handed over the contract. Just at that moment, an eerie laughter echoed in the spacious living room. Finally found you, little mouse trying to steal something. Today, you won't be able to take away this share. Furthermore, you'll have to leave your life behind. A dart with a glint of cold light shot towards Shu Luo's hand holding the contract. Hearing this cold and eerie sound, James trembled all over. Feeling a sense of fear and panic, his legs weakened. He thought about the recent deaths of Osborne shareholders. He understood that the person who came was most likely the mastermind behind it. Especially when he saw the flying darts heading towards Shu Luo. He exclaimed, be careful. Shu Luo moved swiftly, quickly retracting his hand and dodging the attack. The flying darts landed on the sofa, easily piercing through the surface. Immediately after, there was the sound of glass shattering. Then, a green figure flew in from the high window. Wearing a green demon mask, looking somewhat terrifying, dressed in green battle armor, and riding a silver hoverboard with spikes. I didn't expect you to have some skills, to be able to dodge my flying darts. Looking at the opponent's attire, James was so frightened that he slumped onto the sofa. Demon. It's over, I'm also going to pay for this. At that moment, a sense of despair arose in James's heart. The one who came was the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin hovered in midair on his hoverboard, looking down at Shu Luo with a sneer. You're not an ordinary person either. No wonder you're so arrogant, knowing that shareholders keep dying and still daring to buy Osborne's shares. Indeed, you have some potential. But, sorry, even though you seem to have some potential, it's useless. Today I'm taking these shares. After saying that, he reached for the pumpkin bomb at his waist. But immediately, the Green Goblin's voice changed. You guys, run. I can't control myself. Quick. Leave this place. The Green Goblin's body trembled, seemingly resisting with all his might. Shu Luo understood that this was Norman's own personality, fighting against the Green Goblin's personality. But then, the Green Goblin roared, none of you can escape. Stay here. He reached for the bomb at his waist. Seeing this, James's body trembled. Damn it, is this a mental illness? However, compared to the Green Goblin, Shu Luo's movements were faster. Whoosh. A steel button the size of a coin shot out. Seeing Shu Luo throwing something, the Green Goblin instinctively tried to dodge. But he realized that the button wasn't aimed at him, it was several centimeters away. The Green Goblin laughed, your accuracy is indeed lacking. But then he realized that the other party didn't show any change in expression, remaining calm as if nothing went wrong. He quickly turned around, only to see the steel button hit the ceiling lamp, then reflect back and hit him. As if it had magnetic force, it stuck to his body. "Do you want to use this little button to inject poison into me? You're thinking too much, my battle armor can't even be penetrated by bullets." Saying that, he reached for the bomb at his waist. Just at that moment, buzz, an invisible small electromagnetic pulse was released. Instantly, all the electronic devices on the Green Goblin's body malfunctioned, including his hoverboard. Ouch! The Green Goblin fell heavily from midair and crashed onto the ground. The people nearby winced at the sight. The Green Goblin endured the pain of falling apart and climbed up. Damn it! It's an electromagnetic pulse weapon, and it's so small. The button just now was a brand new mini electromagnetic pulse weapon developed by Shu Luo. Its range was not large, only a few meters. This type of electronic pulse weapon was mainly targeted at individuals, a pinpoint strike. Whoosh! Just as the Green Goblin had just stood up, Shu Luo made a move. He rushed forward with a swift step. Immediately, he delivered a whip kick and said, "You talk too much." Bang! Green Goblin was just getting up when he was blasted away. Like a cannonball flying out, he crashed into a nearby cabinet. The cabinet was shattered by the impact. Green Goblin let out a scream of pain. James saw this scene and swallowed his saliva, his eyes widened. He never expected Mr. Lee to be so fierce. The power of that kick was comparable to a violent collision with a motorcycle. He thought it was over, but unexpectedly, there was a master by his side. "No wonder Mr. Lee dares to acquire the shares in my hands. He is indeed bold and skilled." Green Goblin climbed out of the broken wood, blood at the corners of his mouth. He coughed and spat out blood from the mouthpiece of his mask. He angrily shouted, "I haven't lost yet." Green Goblin decided to take the initiative to attack, relying on his strengthened body to defeat his opponent. After saying that, he roared and charged towards Shu Luo, throwing a punch at him. Seeing Green Goblin's punching motion, Shu Luo shook his head and said, "Your fighting skills are too lousy, full of flaws." As he spoke, he slightly sidestepped and easily dodged the attack. Immediately, he threw a punch that landed on Green Goblin's cheek. Bang! Green Goblin felt a buzzing and pain in his head. He struck again, kneeing Shu Luo in the abdomen. Shu Luo took a step back, evading the attack. Then he delivered a whip kick, hitting Green Goblin's head. Bang! Green Goblin flipped 180 degrees and crashed to the ground. He got up, enduring the intense pain, and fought Shu Luo again. But every attack was easily resolved or evaded by Shu Luo, who continued to strike him. Although Green Goblin had a strong physique, he had no fighting skills because he had just appeared. Facing Shu Luo's formidable fighting skills, he was completely suppressed and beaten. Shu Luo effortlessly kept attacking Green Goblin. The more Green Goblin fought, the more desperate he became. He never expected the opponent's physique to be so powerful, not inferior to his own. What surprised him even more was that the opponent's fighting skills were so formidable. He was completely at the mercy of his opponent. He wanted to end this fight, but the opponent's attacks were too swift, and he couldn't escape. Most importantly, because of that damn pulse weapon, he couldn't use any of his high-tech equipment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to resort to close combat with the enemy. The pain in his body grew stronger and stronger. Green Goblin became even more desperate. James, sitting on the sofa, straightened his back and stared blankly at Green Goblin being beaten. Originally, at first glance, when he saw Green Goblin, he thought he was done for. But the opponent didn't even say 2 words before he fell. And he had been in a situation of being beaten ever since. He couldn't tell if the enemy was too weak or if our side was too strong. Green Goblin's eyes were bloodshot as he swung his fist with all his strength and said, F***K. Bang. A heavy punch. It landed on Green Goblin's face. With a thud, Green Goblin fell to the ground, unconscious. James behind him. James, who was standing aside, was stunned when he saw this. It's resolved. James thought that Green Goblin was going to make a comeback and deliver a beautiful blow with his final punch. But unexpectedly, he was directly knocked out by our side with a punch. This ending feels a bit rushed. He looked at Shu Luo again, his eyes filled with awe. This man is really powerful. In his eyes, Green Goblin is already strong, both in terms of speed and strength. But the result is complete suppression without any discount. This can only mean that the man in front of him is even more formidable. Shu Luo looked at the unconscious Green Goblin and muttered to himself, I thought I would have to use magnetic handcuffs to restrain your movements during the fight. But it turns out I was thinking too much. Your fighting ability is really lousy. After saying that, he took out 2 pairs of magnetic handcuffs from his waist and bound Green Goblin's hands and feet. After doing all this, he looked at James again and said, "The trouble is resolved, let's continue with the contract." James nodded quickly. "Okay, Mr. Lee, I will sign the contract now." Shu Luo walked back to the coffee table and handed the 2 copies of the contract to James. James quickly found a pen and began to sign his name. Seeing this, Shu Luo felt good. After all, the lowest market price was 13 million, but he managed to get it for 11 million. And it wasn't even cash, but the future profits of Osborne. It can be said that he made a great deal. With this 20% stake, after acquiring some scattered shares in the stock market tonight, he will have enough to achieve a 51% absolute controlling stake. After tonight, Osborne will belong to him, Shu Luo. Actually, even without Shu Luo, Osborne would not go bankrupt and decline. Because soon Green Goblin will regain control of the company, relying on his strong scientific and business abilities. He will quickly revive Osborne and make it grow bigger, eventually becoming a giant company that can rival Stark Industries. However, from this night on, history will change. Osborne will take a completely different path. It will belong to Shu Luo and become a massive business organization serving Shu Luo. James finished signing the 2 contracts and handed one of them to Shu Luo, saying, "Mr. Lee, the contract is signed. Congratulations. You will become the new ruler of Osborne." He extended his hand. Shu Luo shook the other person's hand and said, "Thank you." He put away the contract and pointed at Green Goblin. "I'll take care of this person." James nodded. Then, Shu Luo lifted Green Goblin and picked up his flight device. Skillfully, he placed it in the trunk. Then he put the flight device under the seat. After doing all this, Shu Luo drove home. The car shuttled through the neon lights, running on the road. The neon lights illuminated the entire car, as if it was coated with a layer of colorful dream paint. A song called Sunset Boulevard was playing in the car. In a good mood, Shu Luo hummed along. "We run in the middle of this road. We cry at both ends of this road, whenever the sunset sunlight colors everything. I see the darkness of the night, the evening breeze blows over the Golden Beach banquet. I'm still not used to that taste," accompanied by the familiar melody. Looking at the modern city, the same skyscrapers. Shu Luo felt as if he had returned to his past life. Fragments of memories from his past life flashed through his mind. Childhood, adolescence, youth. It felt as if he had never left. Unconsciously, the car drove back to the area of the Hell's Kitchen. Bang. Bang. Not far away, a jewelry store was being robbed. A massive rhinoceros-like man easily smashed the glass and took out the gold jewelry. The nearby store clerks trembled in the corner. That massive figure, that huge rhinoceros head, brought Shu Luo's thoughts back. Reality told him that this was no longer his past life, but a Marvel world full of fantasy. At this moment, Shu Luo completely felt that everything had changed. Shu Luo shook his head and cleared his mind. He continued driving towards the safe house. As for the rhinoceros man robbing the jewelry store, it had nothing to do with him. He was busy now, needing to go home to complete today's research tasks and deal with the Green Goblin. After a few more minutes of driving, Shu Luo finally arrived at the safe house. He carried the Green Goblin downstairs, opened the basement door, and placed the Green Goblin on the workbench. Using magnetic handcuffs, he securely chained him to the workbench. The basement had already undergone some changes. Transparent glass surrounded each workbench, turning them into separate rooms. When the clones and thieves saw Shu Luo carrying the Green Goblin, they all showed expressions of sympathy and sadness. Another unlucky guy with the same fate had arrived. Shu Luo saw the clones and others looking at the Green Goblin. So he pressed a button. Soon, the glass was no longer transparent and became invisible. After completing these tasks, he left the Green Goblin's room and prepared to wait for him to wake up and ask about the Green Goblin's strengthening potion. He returned to his equipment room and began to complete the unfinished tasks for the day. A row of unfinished button weapons was placed on the workbench. He was preparing to create a batch of button weapons. Currently, he already had 2 types of button weapons, neurotoxin and electromagnetic pulse. On the workbench, there were 2 more button weapons. One was a high-voltage shock button, and the other was an alarm button. The high-voltage shock button could release a huge electric current in a short period of time, stunning the enemy. The alarm button, when placed in a special location, could alert if someone appeared or through some other means. This thing was mainly used around houses for early warning. Shu Luo quickly operated with both hands. Soon, one weapon button after another appeared on Shu Luo's workbench. Suddenly, a slight vibration occurred while Shu Luo was working. Immediately, a loud noise came from the computer monitor. Shu Luo looked over. He saw the rhinoceros man who had previously robbed the store appearing in his neighborhood, fighting against an agile figure. It was Ghost Spider, Gwen. The rhinoceros man charged onto the road outside his house, flipping over the cars on the side and smashing them into the walls. If it weren't for his sturdy walls, they would have been smashed through. Gwen was fighting against the rhinoceros man. The wall across the street was directly blasted open by the rhinoceros man. Seeing that his home was about to be attacked, Shu Luo put on his toad goggles and fisherman's hat and rushed out. He leapt up, crouched on top of his own wall, and lowered his hat brim, speaking in a low voice, "Hey, big guy, can you stay away from my house?" However, the other party simply couldn't hear Shu Luo's voice. He roared and lifted a car, smashing it into Shu Luo's wall. Bang! Shu Luo's sturdy wall trembled slightly. Compared to the strength of the Rhino Man, Shu Luo was slightly amazed. The Rhino Man's strength was too powerful, able to easily lift cars, smash cars, and break through thick walls. His strength was on a completely different level. Although Shu Luo had been strengthened by the super serum and possessed strong power, he was not as abnormal. Compared to the Rhino Man and Spider-Man, they were completely on different levels. At this moment, Shu Luo became even more eager to obtain the extraordinary spider and its abilities. After all, in the Marvel world, even on Earth, there were still many monsters comparable to the Rhino Man. The power of the super serum was far from enough. Definitely. Although Shu Luo couldn't match the Rhino Man in terms of strength, he was more agile in terms of speed. In addition, he had some high-tech equipment in his hands, enough to make up for the gap between him and the Rhino Man. In front, the Rhino Man and Ghost Spider were constantly fighting. Especially the Ghost Spider, who seemed delicate and graceful, but burst out with strong power, even able to contend with the Rhino Man to some extent. Shu Luo could see from here. The Ghost Spider's abilities should have awakened not too long ago. Because the Ghost Spider's power could only contend with the Rhino Man to some extent, it was still not comparable to the Rhino Man. After all, if the Spider abilities were fully developed, Spider-Man's power would be stronger than the Rhino Man's. The Rhino Man punched towards the Ghost Spider. The Ghost Spider dodged slightly, and the Rhino Man's fist smashed into the ground, causing the cement to crack and sink. Seeing that the Rhino Man was about to attack his side, naturally, Shu Luo had to stop him. He didn't want the Rhino Man to destroy his wall. He leapt down, diving out, a flying kick in midair. Bang! Kicked the Rhino Man's head. Although Shu Luo's strength was not as strong as the Rhino Man's, he still weighed several tons, combined with the boost from his speed. The Rhino Man felt a bit dizzy from the kick. He roared in a muffled voice, his pronunciation unclear, "You're looking for death." The Rhino Man raised his fist and struck towards Shu Luo. Like the Green Goblin, the Rhino Man's fighting style was also mostly relying on brute force, without much technique. Shu Luo quickly dodged. Naturally, he couldn't directly take the Rhino Man's punch. However, the Rhino Man's fist carried a tremendous force, making a booming sound. Sweeping past Shu Luo, even bringing a sense of oppression to his face. One can imagine how powerful this punch was. Just a slight touch could cause huge amounts of destruction. The Rhino Man's punches frequently missed, making him even more angry. He charged towards Shu Luo with his immense strength. Shu Luo rolled to the side, avoiding the impact. The Rhino Man's head directly collided with a car, crushing it into a pancake. The Rhino Man still wanted to continue attacking Shu Luo. At this moment, the Ghost Spider also arrived. "Your opponent is me, big guy." She punched the Rhino Man, causing him to stagger and take a step back. The Rhino Man just shook his head and quickly recovered. Seeing this, the Ghost Spider felt extremely frustrated. "Damn it, this guy is too tough, I can't even hurt him." Shu Luo saw this. He took out a mechanical button from his body. A mechanical button containing a neurotoxin. The neurotoxin within this button is enough to make the hulking figure in front of me collapse. He throws it directly. Whoosh! It transforms into a blur and sticks to the Rhinoceros Man's body. The Rhinoceros Man looks down at the button and says, "What is this? What are you doing?" In the next moment, the mechanical button shape shifts. 3 steel needles appear and pierce the Rhinoceros Man's skin. Ding! A crisp sound of metal colliding with stone. The mechanical button falls off the Rhinoceros Man, and all 3 steel needles are bent. It seems that the Rhinoceros Man's skin is too thick. The steel needles didn't penetrate, but instead became twisted. Shu Luo sees this and twitches his eyes slightly. This is the first time his mechanical button has failed. It can only be said that the Rhinoceros Man's skin is too tough, preventing the steel needles of his neurotoxin button from penetrating at all. The rhinoceros man looks at the button stuck to his body, then laughs heartily. I thought it was something powerful, but it can't even pierce my skin. After speaking, he stomps on the small button on the ground. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ghost Spider launches an attack on the rhinoceros man. The two sides engage in battle once again. Due to the entanglement of Ghost Spider, the rhinoceros man is temporarily unable to attack Shu Luo. Bang, 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 they exchange blows. However, Ghost Spider seems to be at a slight disadvantage. After attacking for a while, she quickly shakes her hand and takes a deep breath, saying, "Ouch, it hurts, this guy is too tough. My fists are sore and numb," sob. Ghost Spider looks at Shu Luo and says, "Hello, can you drive a big truck? Crash into him with all your might. I feel like that's the only way it'll work." After speaking, she quickly continues to deal with the rhinoceros man's attacks. The rhinoceros man exhales white air from his nose and roars in a muffled voice, his pronunciation somewhat unclear. "Once I'm done with this stinky piggy, Spider, I'll come and deal with you, little brat." Hearing the other party insult her as a stinky spider, Ghost Spider's tone rises, and she angrily says, "You're the stinky one. You're covered in sweat, so smelly, stinky rhinoceros." She grits her teeth and says, "Watch me give you a couple of punches." Bang, bang. With two angry punches from Ghost Spider, the rhinoceros man actually takes a few steps back. The rhinoceros man shakes his head in pain and says, "Damn it, you're finished. Today, I'm going to beat you to a pulp." The rhinoceros man exhales white air from his nose again, even more furious, his muscles tense and his veins bulging. He exerts force with his foot. Boom. The ground directly cracks open. The rhinoceros man enters a berserk mode. Ghost Spider sees this, and her eyes widen beneath her mask. Oh my god, this guy is even more unstoppable. Shu Luo squints his eyes and takes out another mechanical button. It shoots out. The rhinoceros man glances at it. He sneers, "It's this useless thing again." He laughs angrily, "No one can stop me, the rhinoceros man, today." Without dodging at all, he simply throws a punch towards Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider looks at the mechanical button and sighs softly, "Useless, his skin is too thick." The mechanical button sticks to the rhinoceros man's body. In the next moment, boom, a terrifying electric current erupts. Countless arcs of deep blue light were released from the small button, as if countless chains were being released. It was as if a large number of flower buds were blooming. In an instant, it enveloped the Rhino Man. It rushed into the Rhino Man's body. The Rhino Man immediately convulsed all over, his eyes rolling back, and he let out a scream. Immediately after, the massive electric current disappeared. The Rhino Man fell to the ground with a loud crash. With a rumble, the earth seemed to tremble. Occasionally, a mischievous little arc would still emerge from the Rhino Man's body, crackling and seemingly telling of its achievements. A faint blue smoke rose from the Rhino Man's body. This is Shu Luo's latest button weapon, the powerful electric shock button. Looking at its effect, Shu Luo was quite satisfied. The nearby Ghost Spider was bracing herself, preparing to withstand the Rhino Man's violent attack. But unexpectedly, that inconspicuous little button actually erupted with astonishing power. Directly onto the Rhino Man. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva, staring blankly at the Rhino Man, who was emitting smoke and a few strands of electric current. This is another kind of button. This power is too great. She looked towards Shu Luo. Just now, due to the battle, she didn't pay attention to Shu Luo. But now, she suddenly realized that the other person looked familiar. A flash of insight crossed her mind, and she instantly remembered the other person. However, at that time, she wasn't wearing a mask and looked like a normal person. Immediately, she widened her eyes. She never expected that the person she helped at that time would possess such astonishing combat power, able to easily dodge the Rhino Man's attacks. And also possess such powerful technological means. Originally, she didn't need to intervene at all back then, as the other party could handle those few lackeys on their own. She looked at the fallen Rhino Man and smirked. Finally, it's resolved. She clapped the dust off her hands. Time to call it a day. She looked at Shu Luo and said, "I'll take care of this guy." Saying that, she stepped on the Rhino Man with her small foot, her voice crisp, "I'll send him to jail." Shu Luo nodded. He wasn't very interested in the Rhino Man. Because the reason the Rhino Man was so tough was simply because a layer of tough polymer was forcibly attached to his skin using radiation and genetic modification chemicals. Shu Luo wasn't very interested in such methods. He had his own plans for strengthening his defense. Moreover, he already had two projects in his hands, one being Wolverine and the other being the soon-to-be-obtained Super Spider. These two were enough for him to research. And the upper limit of the spider ability's power was higher than that of the Rhino Man, and its functions were more comprehensive, so he didn't need to research the Rhino Man, sacrificing the essential for the trivial. She ran up to Shu Luo and extended her small hand. Nice to meet you, I'm Ghost Spider. Shu Luo shook the other person's hand, nodded, and politely said, nice to meet you too. Ghost Spider retracted her hand and scratched her head. I'll send him to jail first, so he won't cause trouble later. Goodbye. She waved her hand and ran towards the Rhino Man. Ghost Spider took a deep breath, then grabbed the Rhino Man and exerted force, lifting him up directly. She carried the Rhino Man and grinned at Shu Luo, then I'll be off. After saying that, she carried the Rhino Man and ran off. Soon, the other party disappeared. Shu Luo looked at his own fence and saw that it was basically undamaged. Picked up the discarded mechanical button from the ground and returned to his own house. It's no wonder it's Marvel, danger can exist anywhere. Even if you're sitting at home, you can't avoid some unexpected misfortune. Shu Luo shook his head. His gaze returned to the scrapped neurotoxin button. In the previous design, I didn't consider the situation where some people have thick skin and the steel needle may not penetrate. Next, I need to upgrade the neurotoxin button. Even when faced with tough skin or exoskeletons, it should be able to pierce with the poison needle. But how should I do it? He rubbed the neurotoxin button, lost in thought. With his contemplation, he returned to the basement once again. In the silent night, at a certain point on the border between Canada and the United States, there was an endless expanse of grassland, full of vastness and loneliness. Huge amounts of lights swept across, patrolling the border, alert for illegal immigrants. When the lights flew by, two figures, one large and one small, crawled through the iron fence and entered the United States from Canada. Taking advantage of the night, they lurked in the tall grass and quickly ran south. If you look closely, you will find, it is Wolverine and his daughter. They have returned from Canada to the United States. However, this time they are not accompanied by the group of mutant children. Only Wolverine and the little wolf girl. The little wolf girl still had her serious little face. As she walked with a hunched back, she spoke, where should we go now? We have no idea where Shu Luo is. Wolverine still had that old appearance. His gaze was sharp, and he still exuded a strong wilderness aura. Let's first find an old friend of mine and inquire about what happened at the farm after we left that day. The little wolf girl nodded, okay. Because of Charles's words before he died, Wolverine couldn't sleep well. Especially when faced with the current bleak situation of mutants, it made him involuntarily think of Charles's words. During this time, Shu Luo's name kept flashing through his mind. That name seemed to have a magical power, taking root in his heart, sinking deeper and gaining more strength. In the end, Wolverine decided to come back. And as Wolverine's biological daughter, the little wolf girl naturally didn't want Wolverine to venture alone. Although Wolverine tried to stop her several times, the little wolf girl still followed. So, the two of them embarked on the journey back to the United States together. They were prepared to find Shu Luo, to find the person Charles mentioned. In their view, as long as they find the man who can change the fate of mutants, they can derail the wheels of established history and roll in a different direction. Desperate situations can change. The little wolf girl was somewhat confused and murmured, can we find him? Wolverine clenched his fist, we will definitely find him. Even if we have to tear open this land, we will find him. He said in his heart, Laura, your generation should live in a good era. So I must find him. Listening to Wolverine's determined tone, Laura's gaze became resolute. We will find him. In terms of determination and stubbornness, Laura completely followed her father. At this moment, Laura was like an unsheathed sword. Wolverine looked at Laura and sighed in his heart. He didn't want her to follow because returning to this land meant being destined to be accompanied by slaughter and bloodshed, accompanied by death. He had lost too much, and he didn't want to lose anymore. But this little one was too stubborn. She stubbornly followed him for 15 kilometers and finally followed him to the border. Looking at Laura, who was almost a carbon copy of himself, Wolverine smiled bitterly and felt a hint of warmth. He looked towards the vast grassland in the distance and spoke in a low voice, Laura, remember, if there is danger, you must hide behind me. If I can't handle it either, you run far away, and never look back. Remember, this is what you promised me, this is why I will let you come back with me. Laura nodded heavily. I know, Logan. Because Wolverine didn't die in the final battle, Laura didn't call him Dad yet, and they hadn't broken through the final barrier. They had the relationship of father and daughter, but not the name of father and daughter. In the midst of the grassland, there were the sounds of rustling and friction, and the sound of the wind blowing through the grass. These two sounds mixed in this grassland. The cold and eternal starlight and the darkness bore witness to this scene. The history and future of mutants were crossing this vast grassland, heading towards the unknown. On an interstate highway, several boxy cars were speeding along. Sitting in the passenger seat of one of the cars was Donald with his mechanical arm. He was the leader of Essex's mercenaries, and the direction their car was heading was none other than New York. Donald's eyes were fierce. "Finally found you. Even if you hide so deep, we still found you. This time, I came with even stronger firepower. I will definitely catch you, you little mouse. I will take back X-24. I swear." He squeezed the thermos cup in his hand, causing water to splash on the glass. Whoosh. Whoosh. Several cars raced at high speed, shooting towards New York. Inside the basement, Green Goblin woke up. Shu Luo used some means on Green Goblin and finally pried out the human strengthening potion from his mouth. Definitely. Shu Luo didn't pry out the human strengthening potion from Green Goblin for his own use. Because the human strengthening potion of Green Goblin, similar to the super soldier serum, was something that tapped into the human potential. It fully unleashed the limits of the human body. His body had already been pushed to the limit by the super soldier serum, and the Green Goblin's strengthening potion couldn't take him any further. The reason he asked for the Green Goblin's strengthening potion was to develop the corresponding serum, eliminate Norman Osborn's Green Goblin persona, and restore Norman to normal. Norman originally had a good personality. Most importantly, he was a talented person with scientific research and business abilities. Shu Luo couldn't personally manage the company was just a means for him to obtain more resources. So he needed someone who could take care of the company for him. Someone who could turn Osborn Industries into a business giant, which fully demonstrated Norman's abilities. Most important, he helped Norman eliminate the Green Goblin, which is an unrepayable favor for Norman. For someone like Norman, he will definitely do his best to repay this favor. Therefore, loyalty can be guaranteed. Furthermore, Norman's ability to develop a series of weapons such as the Green Goblin serum also demonstrates his scientific research ability. Talent, when in one's own hands, can bring greater assistance to oneself. In addition, perhaps he can also develop some products that the company can sell from the Green Goblin serum. Shu Luo looked at the Green Goblin serum in his hand, with a satisfied expression. The Green Goblin looked at Shu Luo and gritted his teeth slightly, saying, "With your physique, this serum is useless." Shu Luo shrugged, "It's enough if it works for you." The Green Goblin heard Shu Luo's words and was somewhat puzzled. "How is it possible that it still works for me? This serum can only strengthen the body once." Shu Luo nodded, "You're right, it can indeed only strengthen once. But I can formulate an antidote to help Norman eliminate your Green Goblin persona." Upon hearing Shu Luo's words, the Green Goblin couldn't help but smirk. "You want to optimize this formula? Do you know how long this formula has been researched? It has already been the result of countless sweat and inspiration. This is already the best formula. You want to optimize it. Even if Tony Stark comes, he wouldn't dare to make such a bold claim." The Green Goblin laughed heartily. "You want to eliminate me? It will take you 20 years of research." Shu Luo calmly replied, "Oh," and then he left, leaving behind a slightly dazed Green Goblin. What kind of response is this? What kind of reaction is this? Such indifference and contempt. The Green Goblin was so angry that his whole body trembled. Because of his experience with the super soldier serum, Shu Luo was also quite familiar with body-strengthening serums. At the same time, on this night, Shu Luo also collected enough stocks in the stock market. His share reached 51%, which meant absolute control over Osborn Corporation. In terms of the company's future planning and development, he had absolute authority. It can be said that Osborn Corporation was completely under his control. Definitely, if there were any capital increase, reduction, merger, division, dissolution, or modification of the company's articles of association, it would require the approval of shareholders holding more than 2/3 of the shares, which means 67% of the shares. Definitely, for Shu Luo at the moment, 51% was already enough. When he had more money in the future, he could further increase his share. The next day, the sun was shining brightly. Just like Shu Luo's mood. Because today was the day he completely took over Osborn Corporation. It was also the day he obtained the extraordinary spider ability. Because of the battle last night, Shu Luo was even more eager to obtain the spider ability. Boom. A car rushed out of his house, heading towards Osborn Corporation. "Extraordinary spider, here I come." Shu Luo looked ahead with anticipation. After Shu Luo acquired more than 50% of the shares, he sent a message to the directors, saying that a board meeting would be held this morning. Soon, Shu Luo arrived at the company. Definitely, he was also in disguise. He still had a beard and wore a large pair of sunglasses and a fisherman's hat. He took Kurt directly to the boardroom. Almost all the directors were present. Definitely, there were only a few directors. Because Shu Luo and Norman together held 3/4 of the shares, the remaining shares were in the stock market, and less than 10% of the shares were among the remaining directors. Therefore, the entire board meeting was just a formality. 3 or 4 directors. Shu Luo showed the share documents to a few people. He looked at the directors and said, "From today onwards, I am the largest shareholder of the company and have absolute control over the company. From now on, I appoint Kurt as the head of the research department. He will lead the development of the research department. In addition, I will appoint Norman as the CEO, who will manage the company's business operations in the future." At the same time, he also discussed some matters related to company management and production. The meeting ended quickly. After all, this meeting was just a formality, mainly for him to hand over power and officially gain control over the entire company, in a legitimate manner. It was also to allocate positions. After completing these tasks, Shu Luo asked the directors to leave. He called out to Kurt. Then he handed a document to him, saying, "These are some optimization ideas I have for plasma technology. You can conduct specific experiments on it, and I believe that soon, you will be able to develop plasma technology without side effects." Kurt was astonished and said, "Boss, you already have optimization ideas so quickly?" He quickly took the document and started reading it. As he read, his eyes widened in shock. When he saw the crucial parts, his eyes lit up and he exclaimed, "So this is possible. It's possible to create such a serum. It can specifically target the parasitic genes in the body. By using this specialized serum to remove those parasitic genes, the ultimate goal of eliminating side effects can be achieved." As he looked at the derivation equations and formulas, Kurt's eyes became brighter and brighter. The feasibility of the entire plan was deduced, and the optimized potion could be completely realized. As long as he continued to experiment and make mistakes, he would eventually develop the perfect formula after optimization. The equations and key steps were all written down. After finishing reading, Kurt took a deep breath. He looked at Shu Luo in awe and said, "My goodness. Boss, it hasn't been long since you obtained the plasma technology, and you have already come up with an optimization plan. This is too terrifying. I spent so many years developing plasma technology and didn't even discover the side effects. And you, in such a short time, not only discovered the side effects but also provided an optimization plan. What kind of mind do you have?" Shu Luo shrugged and said, "Shu Luo's mind." Trembling, Kurt held the plan and said, "With this plan, I believe that soon, I will be able to develop optimized plasma. By then, I will be able to successfully restore my arm and become a normal person." Thinking of this, Kurt became extremely excited. The thought of being able to have 2 hands like a normal person made his nose tingle. For all these years, he had suffered so much because of his missing hand. "Thank you, boss," Kurt sincerely said. Shu Luo spoke up, "You should thank yourself. It is your daily research that has led to this plasma technology. It is you who created this technology. You are the greatest contributor, and I am just adding the finishing touch." He patted Kurt on the shoulder. "Besides optimizing plasma, you also need to develop plasma wound medicine to make plasma bandages and dressings," Shu Luo continued. Kurt nodded quickly, "I will work hard. I will develop plasma wound medicine as quickly as possible." Shu Luo nodded, "Very good." He continued, "Next, take me to see the company's assets, those special spiders." Kurt asked, "Are you referring to the spiders developed by Richard Parker?" Richard Parker, the father of Spider-Man Peter Parker. Shu Luo nodded, "Yes." Kurt nodded, "All right, follow me then." After speaking, Kurt led the way to the location of the extraordinary spiders. Soon, both parties arrived outside the entrance of a laboratory. At this moment, Shu Luo felt a sense of anticipation and excitement. Finally, he was going to see those extraordinary spiders. Kurt took out his work card, swiped it at the door, and led Shu Luo inside. They saw numerous glass containers in front of them, filled with various plants. Among these plants, there were cobwebs, with spiders crawling on them. There were also spiders crawling on the plants. And spiders hanging in midair. Seeing these spiders, Shu Luo's eyes sparkled. Within these spiders, there was the extraordinary spider ability. It would give him tremendous power, allowing him to advance to another level of strength. Shu Luo spoke, "I need the research data on these things." Kurt hesitated and said, "Boss, our company currently has very little understanding of these things, and there has been almost no progress. Because Richard didn't leave any breeding records or research data on these special spiders." Shu Luo was aware of this. Richard didn't leave any information on the special spiders to prevent the spider ability from falling into the wrong hands. Otherwise, Norman would have started researching the spider ability instead of the human strengthening potion. So if he wanted to obtain the spider ability, he could only deduce the genetic data of the extraordinary spiders through research and match it with humans. However, this process would be slow. Even if he had extraordinary abilities, it would still require a lot of effort. After all, even top biological geniuses like Richard and Kurt spent a huge amount of time to create them. Show me what you have. Okay. Kurt took out a tablet, entered his account, and pulled up the research data. Shu Luo quickly filtered through it and found very little useful value. He sighed. It seemed that he would have to do the research himself. This made Shu Luo slightly headache. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. He quickly scrolled back to the section where Richard's files were left. He carefully examined it. Immediately, his eyes lit up, and a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. So that's how it is. Those materials record Richard's daily situation in the company. You can see some situations inside the laboratory. Shu Luo observed carefully. He discovered something. That is, in an inconspicuous corner of Richard's laboratory, there is a photo frame, a family photo of Richard, his wife, and son. Since Richard's first day in the laboratory, this photo frame has been in the laboratory. But not long before Richard said he wouldn't leave any experimental records, this photo frame disappeared. It's no longer in this laboratory. If it was an ordinary photo frame, there would be no need to take it away at this time. After all, the person hasn't left yet. And besides this photo frame, Richard's personal belongings were not taken away. Only the photo frame was taken away. Shu Luo immediately pulled up the time when Richard completely deleted all the experimental records. It was the day the photo frame disappeared. Seeing this, a hint of joy flashed in Shu Luo's eyes. If it could be a coincidence, a series of coincidences, it would be hard to believe it's just a coincidence. He was basically certain that there must be something related to Richard's work notes hidden in that photo frame. Just the thought of Richard possibly leaving work notes, recording the key and even specific content of the experiments. Shu Luo felt excited. After all, starting from scratch and standing on the shoulders of giants are completely different concepts. If he didn't have these notes, he might have to spend several months starting from scratch to analyze the extraordinary spider, and then deduce the incredibly complex higher-order structure of the special human genome, DNA, and so on. Definitely, several months is already very short compared to others' research of more than a decade or even longer. But if he could get the notes, he would be able to figure out everything in a week, or even 1 or 2 days, and replicate the spider's abilities on himself. This would greatly save Shu Luo's time. Most importantly, it would allow him to obtain the spider's abilities faster, giving him a bit more security. He carefully examined the records and looked at some pictures related to Richard. Suddenly, he found a record indicating that Richard took the photo frame back home and placed it in his son's bedroom. Shu Luo thought to himself, it seems that this photo frame should be in Peter Parker's hands. Also, it's common for fathers to leave things to their own children. In addition, for Peter Parker, this photo frame is a photo of his whole family, a relic of his parents. He will definitely take good care of it. So this thing should be in the place where Peter Parker lives now. And for the sake of missing his parents, the child will definitely put it in a more conspicuous place. This way, he can constantly see his parents. Shu Luo finished his thoughts, and understood what he needed to do now. He needed to go to Peter Parker's house. Shu Luo handed the tablet to Kurt and said, let's go see Richard's son. Kurt was stunned and said, huh? At this moment, Kurt was a bit confused. After all, in his opinion, the boss's thinking is a bit erratic. After looking at some records, he suddenly said he wanted to go see Richard's son. After all, Richard's son has no connection to their company. Shu Luo spoke up. Richard was also an employee of our company. Although he had an accident and passed away later, he can still be considered a member of our company. Although he didn't leave any achievements in the matter of the super spider, he made significant contributions in other aspects. We are a company with warmth, and it is our duty to offer condolences to the family of a deceased outstanding employee. I want the people in the company to know that as long as they contribute to the company, I will not forget them. Hearing Shu Luo's words, Kurt showed respect. Boss, you are the best boss I have ever seen. Shu Luo nodded in agreement. I think so too. Kurt. Then, Kurt spoke up. I remember that after Richard and his wife passed away, their son was entrusted to his aunt for care. I will immediately have my subordinates investigate. But our company is currently declining, so the investigation may be slower. Osborne, as a company with some reputation, naturally has sources of information. After finishing speaking, Kurt made a phone call. After a while, Kurt received some news. Kurt said, Boss, I have found Richard's son's current address. He handed his phone to Shu Luo, and an address was displayed on it. Shu Luo nodded. Let's go and see Richard's son. Kurt nodded and was about to call the driver. Shu Luo continued, on the way, let's buy something. We can't go empty-handed when visiting someone. Kurt said, understood. Not long after, in front of an apartment building, a car stopped. Shu Luo and Kurt got out of the car. The driver quickly brought out the things and followed behind Shu Luo and Kurt. Knock knock. According to the address, Kurt stopped at a door and knocked. Soon, the door opened, and a woman appeared. It was Aunt May. She looked at the unfamiliar people outside the door with some confusion. Except for Kurt. Kurt made her feel somewhat familiar. Aunt May asked, who are you? Shu Luo spoke up. Hello, we are from Osborne Biotech Company. I am the new majority shareholder of the company, here to visit the family of the former outstanding employee, Richard. We know that Richard had a child, and we came to visit the child and show our concern. Upon hearing Osborne Biotech Company, Aunt May looked at Kurt again and suddenly realized. She said, you are one of Richard's colleagues, right? You also attended Richard's funeral. Because Kurt only had one hand, Aunt May had a slightly deeper impression of him. Kurt nodded. That's me, Richard's colleague, Kurt. Aunt May quickly said, please come in, I'll pour you some water. The three of them entered the room and sat on the sofa. Shu Luo glanced around, and when he looked at one of the bedrooms, his pupils contracted slightly. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Shu Luo glanced briefly and saw a seemingly messy room, filled with many things belonging to teenagers. There were superhero action figures, wallpapers, comic books, and clothes and smelly socks scattered everywhere. Shu Luo immediately understood that this must be Peter Parker's room. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing was that on the cluttered desk, there was a photo frame. It was the same photo frame that Shu Luo had seen in the Richard laboratory. Inside was a family portrait of the Richards, with everyone smiling happily. Shu Luo never expected this. As soon as he entered the room, he saw what he was looking for. He originally thought he would have to spend some time and go into the bedroom to see it. But he didn't expect that as soon as he entered, he saw it. With a bang, Peter's room was closed. Aunt May showed a slightly embarrassed smile. This kid never tidies up his room. Kurt next to her laughed and said, it's normal, boys are like this. When we were young, we didn't like to tidy up our rooms either. Aunt May smiled and quickly placed the plate she was holding on the coffee table. She handed water to everyone. After entering the room, Shu Luo also took off his hat and glasses. Aunt May looked at Shu Luo's youthful appearance and was slightly surprised. Oh my, you're so young. Although Shu Luo still had a stubble, his face showed that he was a young man in his 20s. Aunt May never expected that the boss of Osborne Corporation would be so young. Kurt laughed. Our boss is young and promising. Then, Shu Luo had the driver give the things to Aunt May. They were some nutritional supplements and the like. They chatted about Peter for a while. Then Shu Luo spoke up. You guys continue chatting, I'll take a look at the kid's room and see if there's anything he needs. Aunt May smiled. Peter's room is a mess, no need to look. Shu Luo said, it's okay, as Kurt said, which boy's room isn't messy? My room is still quite messy. You guys chat, I'll take a casual look. After saying that, he walked towards Peter's room. He pushed the door open and walked in. Of course, as a guest, he couldn't close the door. So every move of his could be seen by the people in the living room. He didn't go straight to the photo frame. Because he had just entered, it would be easier for others to pay attention to him, so it would be better to draw more attention to himself. So he walked in and just glanced at other things. He picked up an Iron Man action figure and smiled. Kids nowadays really like Iron Man, huh? I saw news online saying that Iron Man action figures are sold out. Aunt May smiled. Peter really likes the Avengers, especially when he saw the scene of the Avengers Alliance saving New York. So he admires the Avengers Alliance very much. Among them, the one he admires the most is Tony Stark. Because this kid is already very smart and has excellent grades, he has a special fondness for smart people. And it is said that Stark is the smartest person on this planet. So Peter admires Stark the most. Shu Luo said, boys are like this, they admire and like superheroes. I was the same when I was young. There were many photos in Peter's room. There were several pictures with his parents, and of course, there were also many pictures with Aunt May. The pictures with Aunt May were the most. From a little boy slowly growing up into a teenager. At the beginning, Shu Luo picked up some photos. Aunt May would say a few words about them, but since the photos were similar, Aunt May didn't say much afterwards. Instead, she talked to Kurt about Peter's matters. Kurt still cared about Peter, after all, he had a good relationship with Richard when they were colleagues. So Kurt asked a few more questions. Shu Luo was quite satisfied with Kurt's performance, as he helped the boss share some of the workload. Shu Luo felt that the timing was right. He picked up the photo frame. Using his body, he created a perfect visual blind spot, blocking the photo frame in his hand. He quickly inspected the photo frame. After a few breaths, a delicate and compact mini USB appeared in his hand. When Shu Luo saw the USB, his breath seemed to pause for a moment. His eyes lit up with delight. Sure enough, there was something hidden in this photo frame. It was exactly as he had speculated. He silently put the mini USB into his pocket and then placed the photo frame back on the table. He looked at it for a while. Then he walked out of Peter's bedroom. Shu Luo asked, "Where is the bathroom?" Aunt May pointed out the location of the bathroom to Shu Luo. He immediately walked towards the direction of the bathroom. After entering the bathroom, he took out the USB. He took out an adapter from his body and plugged it into his phone. He quickly clicked on the USB. He quickly browsed through the contents inside. There were 2 folders in total. One was the experimental records. The other was work notes. After opening them, he quickly skimmed through. Inside were the extraordinary spiders and related research data on spider genes. He quickly glanced through. The contents inside were very detailed, and it should be Richard's complete research data on extraordinary spiders, including the data on using the genes of extraordinary spiders to give humans extraordinary powers. In the latest notes, it was revealed that Richard had already developed the spider ability and edited its genetic code into the body of an extraordinary spider. A hint of joy appeared on Shu Luo's face as he clenched his fist in excitement. Finally, he had obtained Richard's notes. Soon, he would be able to obtain the spider ability. He put away the USB. He pressed the flush button in the bathroom and then walked out. Just at that moment, there was the sound of unlocking outside the door. "Aunt May, I'm back." Immediately, Peter Parker rushed into the room, accompanied by his friend Ned, who was a chubby boy. As soon as Peter entered, he saw Shu Luo and the others, and he was slightly stunned. Aunt May spoke. "These are people from your father's previous company who came to check on you." Peter quickly greeted, "Hello." Shu Luo also looked at Peter. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, the character that had accompanied him throughout his childhood, the character he had always fantasized about, appearing alive in front of Shu Luo. That feeling was extremely strange. For a moment, Shu Luo was slightly dazed, but he quickly recovered and said, "Hello, I am Li Luo, the boss of Osborne Biotech." Peter slightly widened his eyes, with a hint of surprise in them. "Osborne Biotech, you guys are really advanced in the field of biogenetics. I really like your company. Your company has published some excellent research papers in the field of biotechnology. They were really well written." Aunt May, who was standing beside them, affectionately patted Peter's head and then explained to Shu Luo. "This child takes after his father. He's very intelligent and also very interested in science. He knows a lot about various technology companies." Shu Luo nodded. "It's a good thing to have an interest in science. People should be curious about the world and persistently explore the truth. I have high hopes for Peter. He will definitely achieve great things in the future." Shu Luo looked at Peter. Based on his recent attention to New York news, Peter had not officially become Spider-Man yet. He was still just an ordinary high school student. Peter looked at Shu Luo's youthful face and couldn't help but exclaim, "You're really young. I used to think that the bosses of big companies were middle-aged or old men. I didn't expect that it could be someone as handsome as you, a young man. You're really handsome." Kurt, who was standing beside them, laughed. "This kid has a sweet mouth." Peter quickly waved his hand. No, I really think Mr. Li Luo is very handsome, comparable to those Hollywood stars, with facial features as finely sculpted as theirs." Shu Luo was pleased to hear this. He patted Peter's shoulder. "You're a sincere kid, not bad at all." Peter grinned. Kurt. He realized that his boss was not at all modest. One dared to praise, the other dared to accept. Aunt May then introduced Kurt. "This is Kurt, your dad's former colleague. He also attended your dad's funeral." When Peter heard the name Kurt, his eyes lit up. "I know you, Dr. Connors. My dad told me about you. He said you're a rare genius in biology, and your expertise in reptilian genetics is very profound. I've read your papers on the primary structure, secondary structure, and high-level structure of reptilian genes. They were written very well, easy to understand, and covered the topic comprehensively. You really are a great figure in the field of biogenetics." Peter looked at Kurt excitedly, praising him thoroughly, making Kurt feel a little embarrassed. Kurt quickly waved his hand. "I'm not that amazing. I'm not the great figure in biogenetics. I can't live up to such a title." Peter shook his head quickly. No, you definitely can. I've looked into the current state of genetics, and your expertise in the forefront of genetics definitely qualifies you as a great figure. Kurt quickly shook his head. I'm not at the forefront. My boss is the true genius in biology. He surpasses me by far in this field. It was he who guided me in my research on reptilian genes, allowing me to make further progress. Upon hearing Kurt's words, Peter and the others were all shocked. They looked at Shu Luo in disbelief. They looked at his young face, finding it hard to associate him with the title of a biological genius. In their eyes, Shu Luo is just a wealthy person. Perhaps he comes from a wealthy family with a strong background. They have never associated Shu Luo with scientists. After all, in their opinion, a scientist in his early 20s, even reaching the level of a master, is hard to believe. A thought flashed through their minds. Perhaps this is Kurt's flattery towards his boss. Kurt looked at everyone's somewhat incredulous expressions and smiled. Indeed, my boss looks too young, and it seems he has nothing to do with being a master. After all, in most people's minds, masters in a certain scientific field are usually older. That's true. In this world, most masters in the field of scientific research are older. But there are always exceptions. Some people are geniuses that ordinary people can't reach. For example, Tony Stark, in his early 20s, took control of a giant company and made various research inventions, becoming a benchmark figure in the scientific community. My boss is also such an existence. Kurt's words and tone were relaxed and natural, not at all like flattery, very sincere. As a result, the gazes of the crowd towards Shu Luo instantly changed, adding a touch of respect. That was the respect for a genius. Peter quickly asked Shu Luo for some knowledge of biology, and some of the questions were very tricky and obscure. From Peter's questions, it could be seen that he was indeed very interested in biology and had put in a lot of effort privately. Shu Luo answered Peter's questions in a clear and concise manner. Peter's eyes became brighter as he listened. Finally, when he looked at Shu Luo, his eyes were filled with enthusiasm and admiration. Mr. Li Luo, you are amazing. You can even give clear guidance on some cutting-edge difficulties. Now I truly believe that you are a master in the field of biology. Originally, I heard that Osborne Corporation was facing difficulties recently and might go bankrupt. But after talking to you, I feel that Osborne Corporation will definitely not go bankrupt and will only get better. Kurt looked at Shu Luo and smiled. Boss, this kid has sharp eyes. We can leave a position for him in the company in the future. Shu Luo nodded and said to Peter, when you enter university, you are welcome to work part-time at my company. Peter nodded eagerly. I will definitely work hard and strive to enter Osborne Corporation. Shu Luo continued, by the way, if you want to visit Osborne Corporation, I am always welcome. At this moment, Peter's friend, Ned, interjected, our class is scheduled to visit Osborne Corporation this Friday evening. Peter nodded. Upon hearing this, Shu Luo was stunned. Peter is going to visit Osborne Bio Company? In other words, Peter is about to become Spider-Man. Furthermore, Friday evening is the day when the hand will deliver the treasure to the pier. Wow. Both events are happening at the same time. Shu Luo didn't expect this. Time is so coincidental. According to the development of the plot, Peter went to Osborne Corporation, got bitten by a radioactive spider, and gained spider abilities. So, Friday evening should be the time when Peter gains his spider abilities. And at this moment, it is also the day when the Hand Society has a treasure delivered to the dock. Actually, Shu Luo really wanted to witness the moment when Peter becomes Spider-Man. But he can't because the Hand Society has a treasure arriving, so he won't be able to see it. Because he is more curious about what the Hand Society has received. Shu Luo's conversation with Peter and the others is almost over. After a few more chats, Shu Luo and the others left. Inside Peter's room, Ned exclaimed, I didn't expect the boss of Osborne Corporation to be so young and handsome. Peter became even more excited. More importantly, he is a super genius. Oh my god, a super genius, and he's super rich, he's like Iron Man. Ned laughed. You have another idol now. Peter nodded eagerly. Yes, from now on, I have another idol, and that's Li Luo from Osborne. Definitely, my biggest idol is still Iron Man, Tony Stark, his genius is unmatched. Ned said, indeed, after all, Tony Stark is recognized as the smartest person on this planet. Peter said, definitely, if Mr. Li Luo reaches the age of Mr. Stark, his achievements and prestige will be comparable to Stark's. Ned said, I heard that Osborne Corporation is facing a lot of difficulties recently, I wonder if they can survive. Peter nodded firmly, they definitely can, soon. Their discussion turned to school matters. Laughter filled the room. After leaving Aunt May's house, the driver took Shu Luo back to the safe house. Kurt and the driver went to work, back in the basement. Shu Luo took out the USB drive and plugged it into the computer. He started reading quickly. While reading the experimental records of the radioactive spider, he also read Richard's research notes. He quickly absorbed the knowledge about the radioactive spider and spider abilities from Richard's research. In order to understand the gene expression patterns of different spiders, Richard quantified the gene cells in the glands of thousands of adult female spiders using qPCR. Through extensive screening, he identified the potential and integration of spider genes matching human genes. Through day after day of research and screening, Richard selected 354 candidate genes through transcriptome data, 127 of which were highly homologous to protein transcripts. These candidate genes include enzymes such as kinases, proteases, dehydrogenases, and acetyltransferases. In the end, he discovered an evolutionary mechanism that rearranges and combines hundreds of genes, resulting in a special balance that creates sequence polymorphism more than 10 times that of normal genes, possessing extraordinary potential that is on par with human genes. Finally, Richard found the super spider genome that gives humans extraordinary powers. As Shu Luo read Richard's research, he became more and more fascinated. The combinations of genes and the integration of different types of genes are explained in a profound way. Shu Luo looked at those research papers and couldn't help but murmur, Richard is truly a deserving biological genius. No wonder he was able to research and develop such a huge amount of spider ability. It took countless hours of screening, countless sweat, and a high level of diligence and hard work, coupled with exceptional ability. In the end, he completed the extraordinary spider genome research. A day and a half later, Shu Luo's eyes were bloodshot and his hair was messy. Shu Luo spent a whole day and a half without any rest, continuously reviewing Richard's experimental records and research notes. Finally, he thoroughly familiarized himself with Richard's research notes and memorized them. A slight smile of satisfaction appeared on Shu Luo's face. Finally, I've finished reading it all. Fortunately, I have a strong physique and self-healing ability, otherwise I wouldn't be able to withstand such intense studying. As he spoke, he closed his slightly swollen eyes. Shu Luo had mastered Richard's creation of spider ability. Definitely. Richard's spider ability contained his own genes. After all, Richard had used his own genes to recombine with hundreds of spiders, reaching the highest level of compatibility. In other words, his spider ability was locked by his own genes. Others cannot directly use the spider ability researched by Richard, unless they are his direct relatives, and Richard edited his research on the extraordinary spider genome sequence into those dozen or so spiders, turning them into extraordinary spiders that contain the ability to activate spider ability, becoming mobile extraordinary gene activation devices. Although they are spiders, they are actually a dozen or so special biological gene devices. As long as Richard's direct relatives come into contact with these biological gene devices, the formed gene sequence will be packaged and injected into their bodies. After several days of integration and evolution, the two gene sequences will eventually integrate into the optimal state on the predetermined trajectory, giving birth to spider ability. Therefore, Shu Luo cannot use Richard's extraordinary gene sequence even if he obtains it. However, Shu Luo is not concerned about this, because he already understands the manufacturing process. And in Richard's database, there are already tens of thousands of spider genomes. He only needs to match them with his own genes. With his photographic memory and powerful reasoning ability, Shu Luo is confident that he can quickly develop his own spider ability. Looking at the information in front of him, Shu Luo suddenly remembered something. That is the ghost spider Gwen. Peter's spider ability comes from Richard, and because of the gene lock, it is unique and cannot be replicated by others. Gwen has no blood relation with Richard, so she cannot obtain Richard's spider ability. Shu Luo murmured with closed eyes, why does Gwen also have spider ability? Where did her spider ability come from? Shu Luo was puzzled. Could it be that there are other people in this world who have also researched the sequence genome of extraordinary spiders? After thinking for a while, Shu Luo couldn't figure it out. He tapped the table with his fingers a few times. Maybe I can investigate Gwen later. He regained his focus, and noticed another situation besides the need for rematching. Shu Luo discovered that Richard's extraordinary spider sequence genome harbored a hidden danger. This hidden danger is actually the same as the side effects of the lizard serum. That is, becoming a mutant monster. Once Kurt's lizard serum is used, it will turn people into lizard-like creatures. The hidden danger of the super spider's sequence genome is the same, except it turns people into spider-like monsters. The reason it is called a hidden danger is because certain conditions need to be triggered, wildness needs to suppress rationality, and the unstable sequence genome in the body needs to erupt in order to become a spider-like monster. This is also where the sequence genome of the super spider is more advanced than Kurt's lizard serum technology. It is also Richard's ability. He has found an excellent balance point. According to Richard's calculations, as long as the spider ability is not used excessively, the hidden danger will not be triggered for a dozen or 20 years. Moreover, after becoming a monster, if one's will is strong enough, a special judgment will be completed, causing the genome to undergo a special change that will eliminate the instability of the sequence genome in the body, thus achieving the complete elimination of the hidden danger. Regarding this, Shu Luo murmured, with a strong will, the genome can undergo a special change and eliminate instability. As long as I find the equation for this special change and make it specific, I can directly find the new sequence genome after the special change. In this way, there will be no hidden danger. But this will take time, and experiments are needed to verify it. Richard's sequence genome hidden danger cannot be triggered in a short period of time, it is impossible to trigger it in 3 to 5 years. And to solve this hidden danger, I only need a few weeks. So, resolving the hidden danger is not the top priority. The top priority is to develop my own super spider sequence genome. Shu Luo took a short rest and recovered. Then he entered a state of frenzied research again. This Shu Luo has become obsessed with the feeling of constantly learning, researching, and expanding his knowledge and abilities. With every bit of knowledge gained, he feels a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. Especially conquering those unknown things, it makes him even more fascinated. Seeking truth, pursuing power, for Shu Luo, it has become a very enjoyable thing. Next, most of Shu Luo's time is spent analyzing Wolverine's entire genome and studying his own super spider sequence genome. During this time, because Shu Luo has been researching Wolverine's genome, it is almost coming to an end. He has basically deciphered the entire genome of Wolverine's self-healing ability. One day later, in the basement, on the computer, there are locked red genomes, indicating that they have not been deciphered yet. Shu Luo stared at the screen, frantically typing on the keyboard, constantly inputting various equations and data. With the continuous input of these equations and data, one by one, the red genomes turned green, indicating successful deciphering. As Shu Luo's brain spun rapidly and he continued to input, he struck the final key. In an instant, all the red genomes on the screen turned green. The deciphering of Wolverine's self-healing ability is complete. Shu Luo excitedly clenched his fist and shouted, "It's done." During this time, Shu Luo's brain has hardly rested, constantly working at high speed, deciphering Wolverine's entire genome. Finally, he has completed the decryption. This moment, Shu Luo's chest is filled with a sense of accomplishment, making him excited and happy. Shu Luo exhaled, finally completed the analysis of Wolverine's self-healing ability. Next, I will replicate it on myself. After saying that, Shu Luo began the actual operation. He directly walked towards a separate glass operating room. Entered the room of the skinny thief. Because the other party has already undergone gene editing once, adding part of Wolverine's self-healing ability. So this time, he just needs to complete it. By then, extract the special self-healing serum with the built-in gene editing function from the other party and inject it into his body. Shu Luo learned this method of self-healing serum from Richard. Richard fused the corresponding sequence genome into the extraordinary spider, and through a special method, used the extraordinary spider to inject this mature sequence genome into the human body. However, Shu Luo made the corresponding genome of self-healing ability into a special serum, which is fused into the body through intravenous injection, automatically reacting to carry out gene editing and integration, finally achieving the effect of granting self-healing ability. Seeing Shu Luo coming in, the skinny man shivered in fear, his eyes filled with terror. He quickly shook his head, whimpering and begging not to be experimented on by Shu Luo. But Shu Luo completely ignored him. He directly started his own actions and operated the complex instrument next to him. He began to modify nucleuses through genetic engineering. Nucleuses, also known as molecular scissors. These molecular scissors can produce site-specific double-strand breaks at specific locations in the genome, inducing organisms to repair DSB through non-homologous end joining or homologous recombination. Because this repair process is prone to errors, it leads to targeted mutations. This targeted mutation is gene editing. Therefore, Shu Luo is creating a surgical knife for gene editing. Shu Luo genetically modified 4 different types of nucleuses: meganucleuses, zinc finger nucleuses, transcription activator like effector nucleuses, and clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeat systems. The reason why Shu Luo chose these 4 nucleuses instead of using common restriction enzymes is that restriction enzymes are effective in cutting DNA, but they usually recognize and cut at multiple sites, resulting in poor specificity. The other 4 enzymes can overcome this shortcoming. So Shu Luo needs to use these 4 different surgical knives to better achieve gene editing. Shu Luo is working extremely seriously, carrying out precise molecular engineering modifications to the molecular scissors. Time passes. Finally, Shu Luo completed the molecular scissors. He looked at the skinny man and began to use the molecular scissors to carry out targeted mutations, that is, gene editing, granting him the complete version of Wolverine's self-healing ability. According to the decoded genome, Shu Luo began to re-edit the DNA of the skinny person. He was fully focused and carefully carried out targeted mutations, as if avoiding off-target effects, which would indicate editing failures and preventing toxic reactions. Time passed by. Sweat beads appeared on Shu Luo's forehead. But he remained extremely focused. The targeted mutations proceeded in an orderly manner. Definitely, accidents were inevitable during the process. But Shu Luo resolved them one by one. Finally, the experiment came to an end. Shu Luo completed the final editing. After finishing all this, Shu Luo let out a sigh of relief and wiped away his sweat, saying, "Finally done." His eyes were filled with joy. Next, it's time to test whether this self-healing ability has reached the level of Wolverine. After a while, Shu Luo began testing the ability. As a result, the room once again echoed with painful cries. Various injuries appeared on the skinny person's body again, ranging from minor to severe, including cutting off hands and legs, and other series of tests. While conducting the tests, Shu Luo recorded relevant data. Cutting the epidermis only takes 15 seconds to heal. Consistent with the clone, meets the standard. Cutting the deltoid muscle takes only 60 seconds to heal. Consistent with the clone, meets the standard. Cutting the anterior tibial muscle takes only 55 seconds to heal. Consistent with the clone, meets the standard. With each piece of data and each standard met, the joy in Shu Luo's eyes grew stronger. The last piece of data also met the standard. In other words, this experiment was a perfect success. He successfully replicated Wolverine's powerful self-healing ability. Done. It took me so much time, but I finally replicated it. Next, it's time to extract the special serum and then make some edits to turn it into a special gene editor. When I inject it into my body, I will gain the self-healing ability. He acted swiftly. This moment went by quickly. Before long, he completed the task. A bottle of pale red special serum was made. After Shu Luo extracted the bottle of special serum, the skinny person lost his healing ability because the special genome had been extracted. It was packaged in the serum. He took a deep breath and then injected the bottle of special serum into his own body. Soon, Shu Luo felt his whole body filled with vitality. His cells seemed to be cheering and jumping, as if containing boundless vitality. He used a transmission electron microscope to observe his own body. The transmission electron microscope used an electron beam as a new light source to image objects. It could be used to conduct in-depth research on various aspects of the structure or the relationship between structure and function of samples, allowing for the observation of more subtle and internal things. Through the transmission electron microscope, he could clearly see the flow of self-healing factors, almost identical to the clone. In addition to granting people the self-healing ability, the self-healing factors could greatly delay the aging process of the human body. He tested his cells with the instrument, and it showed that his cells were full of vitality, reaching their peak state. Most importantly, his lifespan had greatly extended. Based on his calculations, he now had at least 300 to 400 years of life. His lifespan had multiplied several times over the original. 300 to 400 years. That was roughly the lifespan of a dynasty. And in the past 200 years, his appearance would not age at all. He would always maintain his current youthful state. Shu Luo nodded in satisfaction, saying, "Very good, a powerful self-healing ability and several hundred years of life." Then he proceeded with gene sequencing, and the genome related to the self-healing ability was completely identical to the one he edited. He successfully transferred the complete version of the self-healing ability. Shu Luo took out a scalpel and made a cut on himself, and the healing speed was completely up to standard. A long wound healed very quickly. He conducted various tests on wounds. If someone witnessed all this, they would definitely consider Shu Luo a mad scientist, or even an evil scientist. Shortly after, Shu Luo was covered in bloodstains, sweating profusely, and his eyes were bloodshot. Finally succeeded, Shu Luo let out a long breath. Then he left the operating room, leaving behind the terrified and trembling skinny person. At this moment, the skinny person's lips turned pale, and his eyes seemed to be popping out, trembling uncontrollably. He swore that he had never seen Shu Luo as terrifying as he was now. This guy was definitely not human. Even the most terrifying devil couldn't compare to him. Between his trembling throat, he kept murmuring, "Monster, monster." It is evident that the skinny person's mental state seems to be somewhat poor. Shu Luo left the operating room and returned to his own biology laboratory. He clicked on the screen and immediately a medical plan popped up. Gene editing optimization for congenital heart disease and asthma. This is a gene editing treatment plan he made while working on the Wolverine and Spider ability, after enhancing gene editing technology. By then, the problems on Elizabeth's body can be solved. Immediately, he closed this plan. He looked at the computer screen on the other side. It was filled with various data, all of which were his continuous matching tests on those spider genes, selecting the most suitable genome for him. Progress was very fast. He had already completed half of the workload. Tomorrow, he would be able to select the most suitable genome for himself. He would be able to obtain the spider ability. Thinking of this, a hint of anticipation arose in his heart. However, Shu Luo did not continue his research, but stood up. He checked the time. It was already early Friday morning. Today was the day the Han Society's treasure arrived at the dock, and it was also a good time to relax his mind. After using his brain for so long, he felt a bit muddled. He shook his head. Shu Luo prepared to go to the scene first and check it out. He looked at the bloodstains on his body. Then he touched his messy hair and said, "I've been busy for so long, I'll take a shower and have breakfast before leaving." Immediately, he went upstairs. He washed himself thoroughly and then had a breakfast that was not delicious but nutritionally adequate. Afterwards, he set off. Not long after, Shu Luo arrived at the dock. The New Jersey port in New York, a fully automated dock. Located at the Atlantic Gateway of the Panama Canal, it is the largest port in the New York Bay Area. Compared to other ports on the east coast of North America, this port has more inland and overseas freight routes. A large number of huge containers were placed on the dock, and various mechanized cranes manipulated these containers. Shu Luo stood on a container and could also see the Statue of Liberty not far away. Shu Luo took out some mechanical buttons and said, "Let's start my reconnaissance work." Whoosh! Shu Luo leapt down and began to move quickly in the vast dock. It took quite a while. Shu Luo stopped by the river, his body covered in sweat, his back soaked. "The reconnaissance is complete. I'll come and take a look when the time comes tonight. I wonder what kind of treasure these guys are transporting. Something that grants immortality, or something that brings people back to life, or something else." Shu Luo then left the dock. In the evening, Shu Luo went to the dock again. An anonymous email was sent to the computer in the safe house. "It's me, Claw. We've been discovered by Hydra, and Little Yi and I are running for our lives." In the evening, Shu Luo came to the dock again. Definitely, it was a bit earlier than the scheduled time. After all, it was impossible to do reconnaissance. Shu Luo was currently unaware of the fact that an anonymous email was received by the computer in the safe house. His attention was focused on what was in front of him. Because according to the information obtained, the goods would arrive soon. Shu Luo checked the time. There were still more than 10 minutes before the goods arrived. Shu Luo was still very curious. Just at this moment, his phone suddenly vibrated. Shu Luo frowned and was about to take out his phone. At this moment, whoosh, 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 figures came from all directions and leapt onto the containers. 7 or 8 people dressed as ninjas surrounded Shu Luo. One of them sneered and spoke in a low and powerful voice, "Are you waiting for the Han Society's treasure?" The opponent's movements were so light that Shu Luo barely heard any sound before the opponent approached. It was as if they really had light kung fu skills. Shu Luo couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Is this what a ninja is like, making almost no sound? It's perfect for doing sneaky things. Is this a secret technique of the hand-in-hand society?" At that moment, Shu Luo became slightly interested in the secret techniques of the hand-in-hand society. After hearing the opponent's words, Shu Luo calmly said, "I'm just a passerby. I have no idea what you're talking about." Calm and indifferent, as if really telling the truth. You, being able to calmly and indifferently spout nonsense like this, if we hadn't seen it with our own eyes, we might actually believe you. One of the ninjas sneered, a passerby lurking on top of a container, watching our predetermined meeting place with eyes full of anticipation? And, would a passerby cover themselves up so tightly? Would they carry a shield on their back? Would they have a gun strapped to their waist? They looked at Shu Luo's attire, with a hood on his head and a mask covering his mouth, making it impossible to see his appearance. Behind him, there was also a gray steel shield. His waist seemed bulging, as if carrying several guns or other weapons. Shu Luo glanced at the blades on the opponent's waist and said, "I'm a person who lacks a sense of security. I like to carry something with me wherever I go." Shu Luo's hand had already started trembling, and before the opponent charged at him, he silently reached into his collar, feeling around and preparing. From their skills and movements, Shu Luo understood that these guys were seasoned warriors, born killers and warlords. And their physical abilities far surpassed those of ordinary people. Even if he faced them head-on, he would have to endure some hardships. Upon hearing Shu Luo's words, the opponent coldly snorted, still trying to argue. Ninjas grasped the handles of their blades at their waists, one by one, and said, "Where did you take those 3 unlucky bastards? It's been a few days, and they haven't come back. Do you think we wouldn't be vigilant? Do you think we would still keep this as the meeting point? Do you think we wouldn't change the location? Tell us, what did you do to those 3 unlucky bastards? And who are you? A member of the True Purity Society. Have you been targeting us for a long time? What other plans do you have? How long have you been brewing your plans?" The True Purity Society, the archenemy of the Hand-in-Hand Society, was also a ninja organization, but they belonged to the side of justice. He shook his head and said, "I'm just a passerby, completely unrelated to your conflicts." Shu Luo's words are really true. Whether it's the Hand Association or the True Pure Association, they have nothing to do with him. Coming here is just to visit the treasures and see if there is an opportunity. In addition, Shu Luo doesn't want to take action. After all, if he can avoid it, he won't take action. This can save him some equipment and avoid wasting some elixirs. "You're still trying to argue. We will make you speak." The other party's voice was cold. With a wave of his hand, all the ninjas around rushed towards Shu Luo. Swish, swish, swish. Sharp katanas were drawn out, shining silver under the moonlight, with a cold light flowing. Seeing this, Shu Luo tightened his grip on what he held in his hand. "If there is a way to heaven, you don't take it. If there is no way to hell, you come on your own." Seeing this, Shu Luo couldn't help shaking his head. "I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. If the other party simply retreats, nothing will happen. At least not for now. But since the other party rushed up like this, Shu Luo can only send them on their way." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures shot out and rushed towards Shu Luo. Cold light drew arcs in the air, chilling to the bone. The movements were incredibly light, almost without any sound. Like invisible assassins in the dark night, Shu Luo raised his hand, and mechanical buttons shot out instantly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They rushed towards those ninjas. Seeing the flying hidden weapons, those ninjas all shifted their bodies slightly, preemptively avoiding the shooting hidden weapons. In the eyes of the ninjas, there was a trace of disdain for Shu Luo's methods. As masters of hidden weapons, they have an innate defense against hidden weapons and know how to avoid them. Thinking of using hidden weapons to hit them is simply wishful thinking. Just as they had just deviated from the predetermined trajectory of the flying hidden weapons. A faint electric arc burst out from those hidden weapons. Immediately, the flight trajectory of those mechanical buttons quickly changed. Suddenly, they made a sharp 90-degree turn. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Changing direction, they rushed towards the ninja's steel blades. Seeing this scene, the disdain in the ninja's eyes instantly froze, then turned into shock. Almost everyone widened their eyes at the same time, their pupils trembling, watching this scene in disbelief. What? What? Because the ninjas only slightly shifted and dodged the original trajectory of the buttons, the distance between them and the buttons was relatively close. So when the buttons suddenly turned and flew towards the blades, they didn't have time to react at all. Ding. 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 A series of crisp metal hitting sounds rang out. One by one, the mechanical buttons stuck to the steel blades. Seeing the buttons on the steel blades, the ninjas were all shocked, feeling a trace of fear and dread in their hearts. They understood that these mechanical buttons were definitely very dangerous. They quickly let go of their hands, wanting to throw away the blades. But it was too late. One by one, the pocket-sized mechanical buttons suddenly exploded, powerful electric currents burst out, instantly filling the entire blade, enveloping the ninjas. Moans and groans filled the air. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, the ninjas fell to the ground, smoking, with traces of electric current coming out. Shu Luo saw this and gave a belated reminder. These buttons have a powerful electromagnetic force and will move towards the nearest steel. Furthermore, these buttons have a strong electric shock effect. Even if someone has exceptional physical fitness, they can still be stunned. After the incident with the Rhino Man in the previous battle, Shu Luo strengthened his mechanical buttons once again. He added a small iron core inside the powerful electric shock buttons, wrapped with a conductive coil that matched its power. When electrified, the conductive coil would generate a magnetic field like a magnet, possessing a strong electromagnetic function. Everyone has some iron objects on them to some extent. As long as the timing is right, the enemy can be better targeted. Definitely. Not all the ninjas on the scene fell. The ninja who waved his hand did not rush towards Shu Luo and was not attacked by the electric shock buttons. He looked at the scene in front of him, his eyes almost popping out. He never expected that Shu Luo would possess such powerful high-tech weapons. Who are you? You definitely aren't a true shinobi. True shinobi rarely use these mechanical gadgets. True shinobi also belong to the ninja, belong to the warriors. They mostly rely on cold weapons for combat. Shu Luo slowly walked towards the ninja. Just an unknown passerby who wanted to see what treasures you guys brought, a bit curious. The remaining ninja, in fact, was intentionally left by Shu Luo. Because he wanted to extract some information from the other party's mouth. The ninja sneered. It seems like you might have accidentally gotten involved. But once you're involved, life and death are no longer up to you. Whoosh. He shot towards Shu Luo, almost quickly reaching Shu Luo's vicinity. A clang. A cold light flashed. The ninja drew the sword from his waist. As long as I get close to you, we are within the range of the electric shock. You will have to be cautious. Without those high-tech gadgets, killing you would be as simple as killing a chicken or a dog. He coldly laughed, and the sharp katana slashed towards Shu Luo. The blade was fast, like a beam of light towards Shu Luo. Clang. Shu Luo took off his shield and easily caught the opponent's blade. Sparks flew. The speed of defending with the shield was extremely fast. The ninja on the opposite side looked surprised, slightly sucked in a breath. Your speed. Because Shu Luo's speed was even faster than his. It's important to note that he had been enhanced by secret techniques. Shu Luo blocked the blade, then directly used brute force to press down on the blade, colliding with the opponent. Facing a group of ninjas might give him a headache, might cause him some injuries. But if it was just one ninja, although their speed might be faster, it wouldn't be faster than him, and their strength wouldn't be much higher than an ordinary person. In terms of physical fitness, he completely overwhelmed them. So, taking down one ninja was an easy task for him. The formidable and inhuman giant force charged towards the ninja. Feeling the unstoppable and astonishing power, the ninja's pupils trembled. Damn it! Who is this guy? This power is too strong. Bang! The ninja was directly smashed onto the ground, emitting a painful groan. His head throbbed with pain, and the whole world seemed to blur. Shu Luo kicked away the opponent's weapons, handcuffed his hands, and lifted him up like a little chick. Shu Luo spoke. Tell me, what did you guys transport? What did you change the location and time to? Also, how were you able to move almost silently? Is it some kind of secret technique from the Hand Association? The ninja coldly looked at Shu Luo and said, Don't expect to get a word out of my mouth. Shu Luo calmly said, I want to give it a try. After speaking, he put the shield back on his back. He stepped to the side. A katana flew up into the air and was caught by Shu Luo in an instant. Just as Shu Luo was about to make a move, the ninja's pupils suddenly contracted, then lost their light. His head tilted, and white foam poured out of his mouth. He committed suicide. Seeing this, Shu Luo let out a breath and said, The members of the Hand Association are ruthless, even their suicides are so clean. It seems that the Hand Association's ninjas are ready to die at any time, just like death warriors. Pissed. Shu Luo directly severed the opponent's head. Completing the final blow, he looked at the other ninjas lying on the ground, all unconscious. He murmured, Just leave one, kill the rest. After speaking, he walked over. Pissed. The sharp blade cut off the heads of these ninjas. At the same time, he searched their bodies, hoping to find something valuable. Unfortunately, there was nothing, except for some poisoned hidden weapons. In the end, one ninja was left. He planned to take him home for interrogation. Just at that moment, buzz, the phone rang again. A buzzing sound filled the air. It was an alarm. It was the alarm button he used for perception. When he came to scout this morning, he had placed alarm buttons in various corners of the dock. This way, he could control the situation of the entire dock. When the ninja had just arrived, the phone vibrated once, alerting him. He took out his phone directly. A small program popped up, showing the topography of the dock. On the map, there were several green dots scattered along the dock's shore. At this moment, on the other side of the dock, one green dot turned into a red dot. And it was still vibrating. This meant that someone was nearby. He quickly clicked on one of the red dots. Instantly, a surveillance video appeared. Inside the camera, a boat was approaching. On the shore, there were several ninjas and some gang members. Judging from their appearance, they were ninjas from the Hand Association and the gang members below. Shu Luo looked at the video and said, So they changed the location to the other side of the dock and slightly adjusted the time. It seems that I haven't missed the Hand Association's treasure. Before going over, I'll deal with this ninja in front of me first. I can't let him die just like that. I still want to extract some information from his mouth. After speaking, he put the previous pair of magnetic handcuffs on the other person and used a button with a neurotoxin. Very good, now I don't have to worry about this guy escaping or committing suicide. He immediately jumped off the container and found a corner container to hide the ninja in. He was ready to come back later and take this guy away. Alright, you can go now. Shortly after, on the other side of the dock, Shu Luo stood behind a taller container, looking ahead. The ship had already arrived at the shore. The container had just been brought to the shore. He glanced to the side and saw two figures not far away on another container. An old man and a man wearing a red tight battlesuit with a red mask. Seeing the two, Shu Luo immediately recognized their identities. Daredevil and his master, Stick. Stick was a top martial arts master with extraordinary fighting ability. Daredevil was also one of his most outstanding disciples. However, their relationship was not very good. Stick treated enemies cruelly and decisively, advocating the abandonment of weak emotions. Daredevil, on the other hand, advocated not killing. The two had ideological conflicts. Seeing this, Shu Luo thought to himself, I didn't expect Daredevil to be here too. That's right, after all, Daredevil and the Hand are archenemies. It's normal for him to appear here. He took a glance at Daredevil's side, then he withdrew his gaze. He looked at that container. It seemed that the thing was inside this container. I wonder what the Hand has transported. Clang. The container was slowly opened. Inside, there was a bald boy sitting cross-legged, wearing a robe like a monk's robe. In front of him, there was an exquisite red wooden box. A gang member carefully picked up the wooden box. These gang members were all Asians and had a connection with the Hand, obviously members of a Japanese gang. The leader of the gang was burly and had an air of authority between his eyebrows. He waved his hand. Two gang members quickly went forward to support the closed-eyed little monk. Shu Luo raised an eyebrow and looked at the exquisite wooden box. Is this the treasure transported by the Hand? It should contain something valuable, judging by the exquisite wooden box. And who is this little child? The illegitimate child of a high-ranking member of the Hand. To be able to be sent along with the wooden box, his identity must not be ordinary. While Shu Luo was pondering, Daredevil also took action. Stick held a bow and arrow and shot at the people in front of him. Swoosh. Swoosh. Very accurate, and with great force. Easily shooting the bodies of those gang members. Damn it. We have enemies. Kill them. Some gang members quickly drew their guns and shot towards that direction. Some pulled out their blades and rushed towards Daredevil, engaging in a fight. Soon, a group of people surrounded Daredevil and Stick, launching an attack. It has to be said, Daredevil and Stick's close combat abilities were extremely powerful, not falling behind at all when facing a group of people. Shu Luo watched their combat abilities with narrowed eyes, realizing that their close combat abilities were even better than his. He understood that they were at the level of top martial arts masters. His gaze returned to the wooden box again. He had a strong feeling that there must be something good inside. Just as he was getting restless, the little monk suddenly opened his eyes completely black, without any whites. He looked at Shu Luo. Their gazes collided. In this moment, Shu Luo felt a hint of cold darkness and a dangerous aura. It seemed that what was looking at him was not a little boy, but a monster in the darkness. At this moment, Shu Luo suddenly understood. Perhaps the most precious thing that the Hand Society wanted to transport was the little novice monk. Perhaps the contents of the wooden box were valuable, but for the Hand Society, the most important thing should be this strange boy. Shu Luo furrowed his brows slightly. What exactly is this little boy? Just at this moment, after the Stick old man repelled the two, he pulled his bow again. He aimed at the little novice monk. Daredevil seemed to perceive something, and he rushed towards the Stick old man, grabbing at him. You promised me that you would only target the wicked. Why would you target an innocent child? Stop. Due to Daredevil's actions, the Stick old man's arrow was shot slightly off target. Swoosh. An arrow flew horizontally, towards the direction of the little novice monk. Just as it was about to hit the little novice monk's shoulder, it seemed that an invisible force surged out, slightly bending the trajectory of the arrow. Pissed. The arrow hit the person behind who was holding the wooden box, and with a scream, that person fell to the ground. At this moment, the little novice monk suddenly clenched his fists. In an instant, the speed and strength of the ninjas and gang members were enhanced. Together with the experienced gang members, they began to suppress Daredevil and the two, forcing them to retreat. This scene was all seen by Shu Luo. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Is this also a secret technique of the Han Society? The leader of the gang pulled out a knife. A few of you protect me. Quickly leave this place. A few of you go and retrieve the box. He protected the little novice monk, and a few gang members surrounded him, firmly blocking the little novice monk. A few of them quickly left. Before leaving, the little novice monk's gaze fell on Shu Luo. 077, as if there was some treasure on Shu Luo. They turned around to retrieve the wooden box. When Shu Luo saw this, he instantly made a move. He wanted this wooden box. Swoosh! Like a bolt of lightning, he leapt down from the container and headed straight for the wooden box. Seeing someone about to pick up the wooden box, he took off his shield and threw it. Bang! Instantly, the person was blasted away. The shield flew back into his hand, and he had already arrived at the scene. A few Japanese gang members drew their swords and attacked Shu Luo, Hachiga. Shu Luo swung his shield and fought against them. These people indeed had been strengthened, their strength and speed surpassing that of ordinary people. Shu Luo's eyes brightened. It's truly amazing. How did they achieve this? I really want to dissect them. Perhaps I should leave one alive. Although the gang members had been strengthened, they still had a considerable gap compared to Shu Luo. Hearing Shu Luo say that he wanted to dissect them and seeing his eyes light up, the gang members all felt a chill down their spines. Immediately, they all became furious. Just with you alone, you think you can deal with us? Wishful thinking. We now possess huge amounts of power, get ready to die. The few of them tightly gripped their katanas and shouted loudly, raising their blades. Witness our Japanese-style iaido, however. Shu Luo's movements were even faster. After testing their strength, his hand directly reached for his waist. The dark steel barrel swept past the few people in front of him. If I were to use American-style iaido, how would you respond? He quickly pulled the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. The muzzle smoked. The few people in front, for the most part, were shot in the forehead and stiffened in place. Immediately, there was a loud crash as it hit the ground. Only one member of the gang remained, standing still in place, fearfully looking at the gun in Shu Luo's hand. Seeing Shu Luo pointing the gun at him, he trembled and quickly dropped the knife in his hand. How should he respond? Surrender directly. The gang member's lips trembled as he looked at Shu Luo's gun, his eyes filled with unwillingness and grievances. We agreed to a close combat with bayonets, but you didn't play fair and pulled out a gun. Shu Luo looked satisfied with the gun in his hand and said, sometimes, this thing is more convenient. He walked forward and excitedly picked up the red wooden box from the ground. Finally, he had obtained this red wooden box. It must contain some valuable treasure that the Hand Association wanted to transport. Looking at the gang member, Shu Luo asked, what was that bald kid just now? And what is in the wooden box in my hand? The gang member quickly replied, I don't know. I'm just a thug in the gang. The Hand Association wouldn't let us know what they transport. We just follow orders and do things. Shu Luo looked at the gang member and could infer from his micro-expressions and demeanor that he was indeed not lying. So Shu Luo pulled the trigger in his hand. The man fell to the ground, blood gushing from his forehead. Since that's the case, then you're worthless. Shu Luo looked towards the other side. The Night Devil and his apprentice were fighting hard. However, they were clearly no match for the strengthened enemies. Their bodies were accumulating injuries, and their movements were becoming sluggish. Shu Luo looked at the strengthened ninjas and said, if we can capture a strengthened ninja and interrogate them about the Hand Association, that would be great. If we can extract the secrets of the Hand Association's techniques, even better. Also, the old man with the staff should know something about the wooden box in my hand and the strange boy. And Shu Luo also wanted to learn the meditation healing technique from the Night Devil and his apprentice. Through meditation, he could accelerate the healing of wounds. This would further enhance his self-healing ability. This was something he had long wanted to obtain. Definitely, if possible, he also hoped to learn the top martial arts skills from the two of them. Shu Luo immediately took action. He rushed towards the other side. He raised his hand and directly fired at the easily targeted individuals. Bang! 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 Several people on the periphery were directly shot dead. Seeing Shu Luo, the remaining people quickly shouted, kill him. The people fighting against the Night Devil and his group mostly dispersed and rushed towards Shu Luo. After all, the Night Devil and his apprentice were already seriously injured and couldn't handle too many people. On the contrary, Shu Luo quickly dealt with several people, making him the most troublesome presence. Several ninjas rushed towards Shu Luo. Their movements were extremely agile. Even if Shu Luo fired, they could dodge it. Several strengthened ninjas, along with a group of strengthened gang members, were not something Shu Luo could easily ignore and deal with. In addition, the electric shock buttons were mostly depleted when dealing with those ninjas just now. So he couldn't use the same method on them, and the neurotoxin buttons might not hit the target. So he could only engage in close combat. Thinking of this, Shu Luo muttered, "It seems that I can only go all out in this wave, endure some damage." Thinking of this, he burst out and rushed towards the opponents, holding the shield. He fought against those enemies, with a fierce and decisive fighting style. Using the shield, he easily severed the head of a gang member and broke the arm of another gang member. At the same time, he was constantly being attacked from all directions. Blades cut across his body, blood flowing, and pain appeared. Definitely, because of the shield, Shu Luo blocked most of the fierce attacks. At the same time, the wounds under his clothes were rapidly healing. So Shu Luo's offensive did not diminish in the slightest due to the increasing wounds on his body, still fierce and powerful. The more he fought, the more the opponents became frightened and fearful. Damn it. Is this guy a monster? Why does he have so many injuries but no impact on his condition? Yes, after being stabbed so many times, logically speaking, I shouldn't be able to hold on. At the very least, my movements should be slower. What the hell is going on here? The pain made Shu Luo frown. At the same time, it also triggered his ferocity. Bang. The violent shield directly crushed the head of a ninja. Just like smashing a watermelon. The shield was thrown, bouncing back and forth, instantly blasting away 3 people. Cutting off one person's arm. At this moment, the enemy also seized Shu Luo's opening. 2 blades directly pierced Shu Luo's body. 1 blade pierced Shu Luo's chest. 1 blade pierced Shu Luo's abdomen. It was basically a fatal injury. Seeing this, the enemy's eyes were filled with joy. Very good, finally killed this guy. Now, he won't survive. Well done. The edge of the shield in Shu Luo's hand swept across. Pissed, instantly slitting the throats of 2 people. Warm blood splattered. Immediately, Shu Luo put the shield back on his back. With a pissed sound, he pulled out the 2 blades from his body and stood firmly in place. He didn't show any signs of falling down, completely unaffected. Seeing this scene, the people around all widened their eyes and looked at Shu Luo. How? How is this possible? With such serious injuries, why is he still unharmed? Damn it, is this guy a zombie? His body has been pierced, why can't he just collapse like an ordinary person? Daredevil and Stick in the distance also felt this scene and their pupils contracted. They were also shocked by Shu Luo's condition. Daredevil swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Is this really a human? Under such a terrifying penetrating injury, he can still stand like this. And, his breath and heartbeat are still very healthy and stable, completely like someone who hasn't been injured. How? How did he do it? Stick also took a deep breath, his unseen pupils trembling. Daredevil coughed because of his serious injuries, spitting out blood, half kneeling on the ground. The enemy's attack came, and Stick barely helped to block it. On Shu Luo's side, he shot out with dual blades, slashing 3 people in a row, with no delay in his movements, flowing smoothly. In contrast, the enemy, due to continuous fighting and injuries, became slower in their movements. No longer as fierce and agile as before. The dual blades in Shu Luo's hands drew merciless and cold arcs in the air, taking away one life after another. After a few breaths, there was only 1 ninja left in front of Shu Luo, covered in blood and full of wounds. The opponent looked at Shu Luo, his pupils trembling. What kind of monster are you? The ninja felt a hint of fear in his heart. Facing someone who couldn't be killed, even a resolute ninja couldn't hold on. Shu Luo didn't respond, he rushed forward. The ninja wanted to resist, but Shu Luo was faster, and he didn't directly stab and kill the opponent, but dodged the opponent's attack. The hilt of the blade smashed into the back of the opponent's neck. Seeing that Shu Luo didn't kill him, the ninja was first stunned, then understood the meaning. The opponent wanted to capture him alive. Realizing this, the ninja immediately prepared to commit suicide. However, Shu Luo had already anticipated this, and his attack came first. Bang! The ninja was hit in the back of the neck and immediately fell unconscious. Shu Luo then used a nerve toxin button on the opponent's body. After finishing these tasks, he ran towards Daredevil. The gang members who were fighting Daredevil were completely terrified by Shu Luo's performance. They quickly tried to escape. Shu Luo quickly fired several shots and took down those few people. He immediately arrived in front of Daredevil and Stick. Daredevil and Stick quickly expressed their gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for saving us. Shu Luo waved his hand. It's nothing. I saved you guys because I wanted to ask something. After asking, we'll consider it even. How about it? Daredevil nodded. Stick coughed and coughed up some blood, his face slightly pale. He nodded. All right, go ahead and ask. You saved me, so I will answer truthfully. Shu Luo took out the wooden box in his hand. Do you know what this is for? Stick asked. Can you show it to me? Shu Luo handed over the wooden box. Stick took the wooden box and opened it. Suddenly, a piece of bone appeared, not knowing from what creature. But the bone was quite extraordinary, with a flowing fluorescence. Shu Luo didn't expect that the hand had actually transported a piece of bone. Stick looked at the bone. This is a piece of mysterious dragon bone, a treasure of the hand. I don't know what kind of dragon's bone it is. All I know is that the hand uses mysterious dragon bones to help people extend their lives. They use secret techniques in conjunction with the dragon bones. The ancient relics of the hand that have been living in the world have been using the dragon bones to continuously prolong their lives. Shu Luo knew that the hand had a method of prolonging life. He just didn't expect that they would use dragon bones. Shu Luo murmured, so it's a treasure for extending life. A hint of joy flashed in his eyes. After all, who wouldn't want to increase their lifespan? Everyone wants to live forever, and Shu Luo is no exception. It's no wonder the hand sent so many people to take over. It is indeed a precious treasure. This harvest is quite good, he then asked. What about the little boy? I can sense a dark and cold aura from him. Stick handed the box back to Shu Luo. He nodded approvingly. Your perception is very accurate. That is an evil thing. But, that is not a little boy, it is a little girl. She is a vessel for an evil demon. The hand is worshipping a demon, a primitive demon called Beast, and Beast will continuously possess humans, giving them powerful evil powers. At the same time, they obtain bloody sacrifices from humans. And that vessel is called Black Void, and she will become the leader of the hand. Shu Luo was taken aback. A girl? Seeing that the other party was a bald girl, he thought it was a little boy. Upon careful recollection, the figure was soft, indeed a girl. Beast? Shu Luo knew that the hand was worshipping a demon, but he didn't know much about it. From Stick, he finally learned what demon the hand was worshipping. Shu Luo said, sure enough, the girl is the most valuable in this shipment. In addition, before Black Void left, she constantly looked at him. Shu Luo felt that his entanglement with the hand would not end here. Shu Luo asked, why did Black Void suddenly open her eyes and keep watching me? Stick said, I don't know either. Maybe you are different from ordinary people, so she was interested in you. Shu Luo narrowed his eyes slightly. If I want to kill Beast, what should I do? Stick shook his head. Beast is a primitive demon, impossible to kill. But we can destroy its vessel, Black Void, and make Beast temporarily disappear from this world. Knowing that there is a way to deal with it, Shu Luo nodded. As for being impossible to kill, there is nothing in this world that cannot be killed. If it can't be killed, it just means that the strength is not enough. Shu Luo continued, by the way, the movements of the Hand Clan's ninjas are usually silent. Why is that? How do they manage to do it? Can you do it? If the Stick Master also knew this technique, he would be ready to ask how the technique is used. Shu Luo also really wanted this technique that could suppress sound. After all, if you want to sneak up on someone, this technique is really good, almost achieving true silence. The Stick Master shook his head and coughed. I can't do it either. This is a technique of the Hand Clan, it can even eliminate the sound of the heartbeat. Even someone with exceptional hearing like him can't hear the heartbeat of the opponent. Night Devil's chest heaved violently as he endured the intense pain in his body. He nodded slightly, indicating that the Stick Master was right, he indeed couldn't hear the heartbeat of those ninjas. Hearing this, Shu Luo was stunned for a moment, then raised an eyebrow. He really didn't expect that this technique of the ninjas would even make the Night Devil unable to hear any sound. This was truly extraordinary. Although the Night Devil's physical abilities were not beyond that of an ordinary person, he was only at the limit of an ordinary person. But he possessed a terrifying perception ability. Especially his hearing, it was his most remarkable ability. His hearing surpassed the limit, able to hear people's voices several blocks away, or even farther. His hearing ability had reached an unimaginable level. Yet, such a person couldn't hear the heartbeat of a ninja just a few meters away. Shu Luo spoke, I didn't expect this technique to be so powerful. The Stick Master sighed, indeed, some of the Hand Clan's techniques are truly extraordinary. He continued, however, this technique has a flaw. Shu Luo asked in confusion, what flaw? The Stick Master coughed again, coughing up some blood. Seeing the Stick Master in this state, Shu Luo felt that if he kept asking without giving the other person a chance to heal, the stickmaster might not make it much longer. So he said, "Let's leave this place first and let you all recover." Both of them nodded. Shu Luo turned around and walked towards the spot where he had just bled. He took out something resembling a smoke bomb from his waist. He immediately pulled the pin and threw the smoke bomb out. In an instant, a dark green gas surged out and rapidly spread in all directions. This was a special mist invented by Shu Luo to contaminate the DNA in the blood outside the body. He didn't want his DNA to be obtained by others. After confirming that all the blood had been contaminated, Shu Luo carried the ninja and led the two of them away. Definitely, he also took care of the hidden ninja along the way and retrieved the magnetic handcuffs from him. Soon, the three of them arrived at an abandoned old house. The stickmaster and the night devil began to treat their injuries. They sat cross-legged, closed their eyes, relaxed their bodies, and their breathing became even, containing a certain special frequency. Shu Luo understood that both of them were using meditation to stabilize their injuries and speed up the recovery of their wounds. He carefully observed the two of them. He could clearly feel that the injuries on their bodies were quickly stabilizing. The wounds that were bleeding continuously were slowly clotting. Although it couldn't compare to his own healing speed, it was already very fast compared to their normal self-healing speed. This meditation healing method greatly improved their self-healing speed. Shu Luo narrowed his eyes slightly, not knowing how this meditation healing method could enhance the body's self-healing speed and how it worked. But Shu Luo understood that he needed to figure out this meditation healing method. After a while, the stickmaster and the night devil stabilized their injuries and opened their eyes. Shu Luo asked, "How do you feel now?" The stickmaster replied, "Much better." "I am too," said Daredevil. Shu Luo spoke up, "By the way, what is the flaw of that secret technique?" Daredevil also looked at the old man with the staff. He was very curious about this question. The old man with the staff said, "That flaw is breathing. Although they can almost eliminate the sound of heartbeat, making it completely inaudible, they still have extremely subtle breathing sounds. If you listen carefully, you can hear this flaw." Shu Luo listened and nodded slightly. Breathing is the flaw. He muttered to himself, "If you don't breathe, would there be no flaw?" Definitely, Shu Luo couldn't not breathe. Even though he had a powerful self-healing ability, it didn't mean he didn't need to breathe fresh air. He also needed to breathe, but he was thinking about whether he could not breathe or greatly extend the way of holding his breath. The old man with the staff and Daredevil. Not breathe? Can people really not breathe? Suddenly, they felt that the mysterious person in front of them seemed to have a strange way of thinking. When others hear breathing as a flaw, they should think about how to solve the enemy through breathing. But this guy's first thought was actually to solve breathing, the basic element of human survival. Both the old man with the staff and Daredevil twitched their mouths. Hearing the words of the old man with the staff, Daredevil also fell into contemplation. After all, for him, he had been in a beaten state because he couldn't sense the presence of the ninja before. He had no way to deal with the Hand Clan ninjas at all. Now, he finally knew how to deal with these guys. Shu Luo immediately asked the last question, "Can you teach me that healing method you just used?" The old man with the staff nodded. "Are you referring to the rapid self-healing through meditation?" "Definitely, you can. You saved me, and as I said, I have no secrets from you." Shu Luo suddenly felt that the old man with the staff was very pleasing to the eye. This old man was quite something. The old man with the staff asked, "Do you know meditation? Or have you tried it before?" Shu Luo shook his head. He had never tried meditation before. The old man with the staff then said, "Meditation is not something that everyone can learn. Only a very small number of people can comprehend the essence of meditation and truly enter a meditative state. I'm not sure if you can learn it." Shu Luo nodded. "Okay, you tell me, I'll give it a try." Immediately, the old man with the staff began to explain the self-healing method through meditation. According to the old man with the staff, the first thing to learn is a special meditation method. That is to enter a state of emptiness through a special breathing technique. And that special breathing technique is also very complex, but it has a sense of rhythm. However, it takes time to remember. It is a very wonderful state, where one can feel oneself but also feel incredibly light, as if being alone in the world. In this state, one can clearly feel the pulsation of one's own cells, as if every cell is a heart, and as if every cell is breathing. After entering the meditative state, focus the attention on the wound, allowing the cells of the wound to adjust their pulsation rhythm to the same soothing and rhythmic frequency as breathing. Then, the wound will start to heal more quickly. The old man with the staff explained it seriously and demonstrated it. Shu Luo also listened very attentively. Because of his strong understanding ability, Shu Luo could accurately and clearly comprehend what the old man with the staff was saying. And he could accurately understand the demonstration the old man with the staff was doing. After going through it once, the old man with the staff said, "Meditation is very abstract for someone who has never been exposed to it. In general, it is difficult to understand it on the first try. This is a very normal phenomenon. Even for him, who is extremely intelligent and has extraordinary abilities, it took me several explanations to barely understand the meaning. It took him a day and a half to enter the first meditative state. So, if you feel that you didn't understand, it's normal. You can ask me where you are confused, or I can explain it again." The old man with the staff wanted to say a few more words. The result revealed that the person in front of them had already sat cross-legged and started to attempt the special breathing technique, trying to enter a state of meditation. The old man with the stick was taken aback. He looked towards Daredevil beside him. Daredevil was also a bit confused. They had never seen someone start trying after listening to a simple explanation and demonstration. The old man with the stick looked at Daredevil, his mouth twitching. His eyes seemed to say, "Is this kid too impatient?" Daredevil nodded slightly, shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he would soon be frustrated and continue to seek guidance from him. Their attention was focused on Shu Luo. Soon, they discovered that the other person's breathing was becoming even and quickly entered a certain special rhythm. Breathing evenly and rhythmically, extremely stable, it seemed very skilled, as if they had practiced it many times. The old man with the stick and Daredevil listened to Shu Luo's rhythmic breathing, their eyes widened. They looked at the mysterious person in front of them, wearing a hood and a mask. Both of them were almost dumbfounded. After all, such a complex breathing technique would take ordinary people a long time to master, but this person in front of them completely mastered it after just listening to the explanation once. This simply made the two of them feel terrified. The old man with the stick and Daredevil exchanged glances again. There was only one meaning in their eyes. That is, this guy must have practiced meditation. After all, who can remember such a complex breathing technique all at once? Even someone as talented as Daredevil couldn't do it. On Shu Luo's side, after the old man with the stick explained it, he instantly remembered that special breathing technique. After all, the photographic memory ability was not only used for seeing, but also for listening. He vividly remembered every movement of the old man with the stick and the length of each breath interval. He was like a precise instrument, starting to simulate and replicate his breathing technique and state. With an incredibly strong focus, he began to replicate and simulate. Soon, Shu Luo entered that special breathing technique. His breathing became extremely regular, and he felt a wonderful pulsation. After breathing for a while, he felt completely empty. It was a very strange feeling. In this state, he could clearly feel every cell in his body pulsating, all pulsating at the same frequency. He began to try to focus his attention on all the cells in a certain area of his body, using his attention to assimilate the pulsation of these cells. Let the pulsation rhythm of these cells follow his special breathing rhythm. Soon, the pulsation frequency of these cells was in sync with his breathing frequency. At the same time, he also discovered the activity of these cells had increased. Most importantly, the self-healing factor of the cells. It had actually increased. As he entered the special rhythm, these self-healing factors gradually increased and finally stabilized at 50%. 50%. It directly increased the effect by half. This amplification effect far exceeded Shu Luo's imagination. After all, Wolverine's self-healing ability was already very amazing, and increasing it by half was even more abnormal. At this moment, Shu Luo's calm and peaceful mind was shaken. He instantly exited the state of meditation. Then he saw the two men with the stick staring at him with wide eyes. Clearly, both blind men had no light in their eyes, they were empty, but they were staring at him so intently. That appearance made Shu Luo's heart skip a beat. Shu Luo's eye twitched. What are you guys doing?" The old man with a stick forced a bitter smile. "You have learned meditation techniques, right? And it's this set of meditation healing methods. Just now you lied to us, saying you haven't learned it." Shu Luo helplessly said, "I really haven't learned it, I just have slightly better comprehension and memory than ordinary people." Night Devil's mouth also twitched. Remembering such a complex thing in an instant, that's just slightly better than ordinary people. That's called extraordinary. The old man with a stick said, all right, since you said you haven't learned it, I'll pretend you haven't." Night Devil didn't say anything either, but his expression was similar to Fu's. Seeing this, Shu Luo's eye twitched. Didn't expect it. Now, to be honest, there's no trust left. But Shu Luo didn't explain much either. Whether they believed it or not didn't affect him. In addition, Shu Luo also learned from the old man what he wanted to know. He immediately said, I have asked everything I wanted to ask. We're even now. Next, goodbye. Night Devil nodded. Thank you, I owe you a favor. If you need anything in the future, you can come find me. Saying that, he pointed to his ear, indicating that he could hear Shu Luo's requests. For Night Devil, he had been just a bystander tonight, with the old man teaching everything. So he owed Shu Luo a favor. After saying that, Night Devil left. Just as Shu Luo was about to leave as well. The old man with a stick called Shu Luo. The old man with a stick spoke. I don't know if you're interested in learning martial arts techniques from me. I perceived your combat earlier, and I found that your close combat ability is only considered good, far from top-notch. Even if we both use the same strength, or you can use twice the strength I have, I can still defeat you. Because I am proficient in various martial arts and have integrated them, almost turning combat into a bodily instinct. Shu Luo was slightly stunned when he heard the old man with a stick's words. He didn't expect the other party to say such things, actually wanting to teach him close combat abilities. In fact, he was quite interested in their martial arts abilities. After all, the old man with a stick and Night Devil were few of those who had maxed out their close combat abilities, true blind martial arts masters. They could challenge those superpowered individuals with their ordinary bodies. Such powerful martial arts skills might be related to their blindness and their extraordinary control over their bodies. But Shu Luo realized that he had asked inappropriate questions. Asking about learning close combat was not something that could be done overnight. He planned to find an opportunity to learn from them later. For example, using city surveillance cameras to observe Night Devil's battles. But he didn't expect the old man with a stick to make such a request. Shu Luo was somewhat surprised. Had his personal charm reached this level? He asked. Why? The old man with a stick spoke. The beast will definitely come after you, and the beast is also my enemy. So, when the beast comes after you, I hope you won't be defeated by him. And I can feel that you and I are the same kind of person, decisive and with certain principles. You won't abuse your power, so I think I can pass on my martial arts combat skills to you. For the opportunity to enhance his strength, Shu Luo naturally had no reason to refuse. Shu Luo pondered for a moment. All right. The two immediately agreed on the time and place for the lessons. After finishing these matters, Shu Luo carried the unconscious ninja back. As soon as he returned, he saw an anonymous email from Crow. His eyes immediately narrowed. Inside a Hydra base, Baron Strucker sat in his office. With his hands crossed, he squinted slightly as he looked at the view outside the base, focusing on a tree. Outside, a forest. This Hydra base was still located in a remote and rarely visited place. On a large tree, a bug was crawling, completely unaware that danger was silently approaching. In the sky, a bird flapped its wings. It stared sharply at the bug. At this moment, a subordinate entered the office. Baron, we still haven't found any trace of Shu Luo. Since the incident with Claw, he seems to have vanished into thin air, and we haven't found any trace of him anywhere. We even suspect that Shu Luo might be dead. Upon hearing this, the Baron snorted coldly, his expression icy. All of you useless fools are dead, but Shu Luo cannot be dead. He was the one who single-handedly developed the super soldier serum. And he even injected himself with the serum, completely becoming a non-human. A smart and powerful person like him, and you tell me he's dead? The Baron continued, all of this is because he hid himself well. He must have changed his identity and is hiding in some corner of this vast land of America. He must still be continuing his research. In his mind, the Baron recalled the data Shu Luo took from the Research Institute. By the way, have you investigated the data he took on the super ability individuals? Has anything unusual come up? The subordinate quickly said, there has been a bit of an anomaly in one place. The Baron quickly turned his head and stared at the subordinate, asking, where? The subordinate said, Wolverine. Not long ago, there seemed to be a problem with the Essex group. It led to a conflict with Wolverine. After a conflict along the way, a man who appeared to be Captain America had a confrontation with the Essex people. That person possessed a physique like Superman and a vibranium shield like Captain America. The Baron squinted slightly. Vibranium shield. Superman's physique. All of this does indeed look like Captain America. But it's also very possible that it's Shu Luo. After all, he had contact with Claw before he disappeared. The Baron murmured, what is this kid up to? He then asked, has anything similar happened? The subordinate shook his head. The Baron's voice grew low. Claw was the last person to see Shu Luo, he is our only lead. And for Shu Luo to disappear so completely and smoothly, there must be someone familiar with the gray industry and with safe houses providing him assistance. Otherwise, he could have disappeared so completely, leaving no trace. And Claw clearly fits this image of someone who helped Shu Luo. So, you must find him and pry Shu Luo's location out of his mouth. If Claw has no connection to Shu Luo, Hydra won't continue to spend a lot of time on him. After all, although a vibranium dealer is valuable, it is not enough to make Hydra so concerned. So many days have passed. Investigating Claw has been a huge drain on resources for the Baron, and even he feels the pain. But the clues to Shu Luo's whereabouts have vanished into thin air. The only connection is Claw, so he can only hold onto the thread of Claw. The subordinate quickly nodded. We understand, Baron. We are relentlessly pursuing Claw and his 2 children, but Claw is quite cunning, so it may take some effort. Lord Dao. Send more people and make sure to catch Clow. If you let Clow escape again this time. Lord's tone turned cold and sinister, then be prepared to die. The subordinate trembled and quickly said, we will definitely catch Clow, he won't get away. Lord said, once we catch Clow, we will have 10,000 ways to extract Shu Luo's location from him. The subordinate nodded. This time, besides the Winter Soldier on the mission, the other 4 Winter Soldiers have been sent out. Along with a complete strategic special forces team, a special exoskeleton squad. They are a force capable of annihilating an army. Don't say Shu Luo is just a super soldier. Even if his strength doubles or triples, he won't be able to make a difference. Faced with this destructive power, he won't be able to escape. As long as we get Shu Luo's location, we will definitely hand him over to you. At this point, the subordinate showed a confident smile. Lord nodded. By the way, have we released the reason for the high-profile capture of Clow? The subordinate nodded. Yes, in order to prevent people from knowing about Shu Luo's existence, we claimed that Clow broke his promise when he made a deal with us before. And he stole some important things from you. Don't worry, Lord, no one will associate this matter with an insignificant soldier. Even the other high-ranking members of Hydra won't know about it. Upon hearing this, Lord nodded in satisfaction. He turned his body and looked outside the base without speaking. The subordinate also exited the office on his own. Lord looked at the large tree outside the window. A bird in midair swooped down, easily pecking the insect with its sharp beak and swallowing it in one gulp. Seeing this, Lord's eyes narrowed slightly, his voice cold. Shu Luo, this time, you won't be able to escape disaster. You will be completely under my control, firmly in my grasp. On the other side. In a small town. A tall figure and a small figure were walking quickly in the streets and alleys, wearing caps with the brims pulled low. Their bodies were dirty, and even their faces had scratches. The little girl's round face was extremely pale, making her look even more pitiful with the scratches. The man had a sturdy build, with one hand wearing a black glove. It was Clow and his daughter. Suddenly. Elizabeth suddenly felt short of breath, and her face became even paler. Seeing this, Clow quickly took out a bottle of asthma spray from his pocket and sprayed it for Elizabeth. Only then did Elizabeth recover. Clow quickly touched his daughter's face. Are you okay, little Liz? Elizabeth shook her head, her voice weak. I'm fine, Dad. Clow patted her little head. Let's go, we still need to keep moving. We can't let the bad guys catch up to us. Elizabeth was puzzled. Dad, why don't we go find Big Brother? If Big Brother is here, he can definitely deal with these bad guys, and we won't have to run around. Clow shook his head. We can't go to him. Because these people are looking for us to find him through us. They are targeting him, not us. Although Big Brother is very powerful, he is still no match for Hydra. If we go to find him, the trouble won't be solved, it will just go from 2 people to 3. It will only make one more person suffer. Elizabeth nodded, obediently saying, we can't make the situation worse, right? Clow nodded. He held his daughter's hand, looked up at the sky, and his eyes showed some worry. We can't stay here, let's go. The 2 continued walking, quickly disappearing into the alleyways. New York safe house. Shu Luo carried the ninja back to his basement and removed the poison from the ninja's mouth. He looked at the still unconscious ninja and said, soon, I will be able to extract some information about the Hand Clan from your mouth. For example, the abilities of the beasts, the secret techniques of the Hand Clan, including your mysterious hidden sound technique. But it's a pity that the enhancement state on your body has disappeared, otherwise I could study it better. After obtaining the enhancement state, the muscles and blood vessels throughout the ninja's body would slightly bulge. During the journey back with Shu Luo, this bulging effect disappeared, and the ninja lost a sense of coldness. Shu Luo glanced at the ninja. Shu Luo immediately placed the red wooden box in the biological laboratory. He opened the red wooden box and looked at the mysterious dragon bones inside. This trip was indeed not in vain. The Hand Clan does have some good things. They actually transported dragon bones that can extend one's lifespan. In addition, I also obtained the meditation healing technique that I have always wanted. The effect of this meditation technique exceeds my imagination. Shu Luo recalled the scene where his self-healing factor increased by 50%. Now, he felt excited and joyful. He knew that the meditation healing technique could enhance his self-healing ability, but he didn't expect it to directly increase his self-healing factor, and by so much. Combined with the meditation healing technique, his self-healing ability has far surpassed Wolverine's. Now, he could almost be considered invincible. His vitality became even more tenacious. With the further improvement of his survival ability, he felt a sense of security in the midst of chaos. A smile appeared on his face. When I have time, I will carefully study how this meditation technique works. For Shu Luo, science is the analysis of the essence of things, the search for the underlying logic of their operation, and its application. It is a means of exploring the truth. Whether it is material or spiritual, there are underlying laws and logic in their operation, and science is about finding these things. Even mysterious powers, in Shu Luo's view, can be summarized and classified, and their inner meanings can be sought. Science and the mysterious side are never in opposition. If something objectively exists and can be captured and analyzed by human consciousness, and then applied, it is science. Shu Luo planned to study the operation of the meditation healing technique and see if he could find some patterns. He then said, according to the old man, there are many types of meditation techniques. Different meditation techniques have different breathing frequencies, which bring about completely different effects. For example, the old man's meditation technique is specifically for enhancing healing ability. There are also some meditation techniques that can strengthen the mind or physical strength, or even some special hidden powers. But most meditation techniques are quite secretive and only known by specific meditation sects or factions. Shu Luo was very curious about other meditation techniques. If he could obtain more meditation techniques, he should be able to more easily identify the patterns of meditation techniques, and maybe even create new ones himself. So, I should pay attention to meditation techniques in my daily life. The next time the old man trains me, I can ask for more information about meditation techniques and see if there are any other places where I can find them. In addition to meditation techniques, Shu Luo also gained training from the old man. Once the training is complete, his martial arts combat ability will be completely different, and he will advance to become a martial arts master. He will completely turn close combat into instinct, greatly improving his close combat ability. This harvest was indeed quite significant for Shu Luo. But besides that, he also gained a trouble. That is the attention of the beasts. Shu Luo murmured, I wonder what they are paying attention to. I also don't know what tricks the beasts have up their sleeves. I will find out when I ask the ninja later. In any case, I need to be more vigilant against the Hand Clan. After murmuring, he looked at the computer in the corner, which was flashing. It seems that there is news. The mouse moved to the flashing area, revealing an anonymous email. Shu Luo understood that it should be a greeting email from Clow, sent through a secret channel. It wouldn't be intercepted or traced by anyone. As usual, he opened the greeting email. The information inside made Shu Luo's eyes widen. It's me, Clow. We've been discovered by Hydra, and Yelena and I are on the run. Immediately, Shu Luo's brows furrowed. How is this possible? How could Clow be discovered by Hydra? After all this time, Hydra shouldn't still be focused on Clow. After all, it's not worth the effort to search for Clow, a dealer in precious metals. It's like using a cannon to kill a mosquito, a waste of money. In Shu Luo and Clow's view, Hydra wouldn't invest too much effort in Clow. That's why Clow had been hiding for a while and decided to come out with Yelena secretly. But unexpectedly, Hydra had been searching for Clow and keeping an eye on him. However, Shu Luo quickly understood the reason. He instantly realized that Clow was being targeted by Hydra because of his connection to him. Hydra had been searching for him all along but couldn't find any trace of him. They must have guessed that he was able to hide so well with the help of someone rich and influential. And he didn't have many contacts, with Clow being the last person. Coincidentally, Clow fit the image of someone who could provide him with help, someone wealthy and well-connected. So Hydra focused their attention on Clow. Shu Luo murmured, Hydra, you've gone to great lengths to find me. He looked at the email. The fact that Clow didn't seek his help indicated that he didn't intend to come to him and probably planned to escape and hide elsewhere. He didn't want to bring trouble to him. After all, in Clow's view, Hydra was a terrifying behemoth, and even if they found Shu Luo, they wouldn't be able to solve the difficulties Clow and Yelena were facing. It had to be said that Clow was indeed worth befriending. He had provided him with so much help. Even in times of danger, he still considered him. Shu Luo murmured, your situation arose because of me, so it's only right for me to solve it. Besides, I have received so many benefits from you. And I should settle the score with Hydra, at least to understand a part of it. In Shu Luo's view, this was something he had to personally handle. Moreover, he was no longer the Shu Luo who had just left the Hydra base. He had undergone huge amounts of change. He now had the ability to deal with things. At the very least, Shu Luo wouldn't let Clow and his daughter be captured by Hydra because of him. He looked at the computer, where the composition of the super spider sequence genome was nearing completion. His spider ability would soon be born, even if it was just the initial spider ability. But his strength would still undergo earth-shaking changes, with his speed and strength increasing several times, even close to 10 times. Combined with Wolverine's powerful self-healing ability, and some high-tech means, his strength would undergo huge amounts of change compared to before. A super soldier couldn't handle a group of winter soldiers and special forces from Hydra. But now, he was enough. He understood that his grudge with Hydra would soon be resolved. He immediately sent a message to Clow. Come to New York, I will help you deal with Hydra chasing you. After sending the message, Shu Luo clenched his fist and murmured, Hydra, let's settle an old score. His fist tightened, and the bones made a crisp cracking sound. The ninja should be waking up soon. Shu Luo immediately left the biological laboratory. In order to prepare for the upcoming battle, Chen Luo made some thorough preparations. After all, he would be facing a powerful elite force of Hydra with formidable combat capabilities. This would definitely not be an easy fight. It would take some time for Claw to rush to New York. But he had enough time to prepare. He entered the room of the ninja. He planned to first extract the hidden secret techniques of the ninja. Outside the villa, the sky was extremely dark, without any stars or a bright moon, shrouded in continuous dark clouds. The air at this time was extremely stuffy. The whole world seemed to be in a suffocating atmosphere. Boom. A thunderous sound carrying a magnificent power resounded in the heavy dark clouds. In the belly of the dark clouds, some lights appeared. A strong wind blew, making the trees outside rustle. Countless leaves were blown off and drifted away. Countless households closed their windows and put away their clothes. The dark clouds are restless. Thunder is coming. A heavy rain is about to come. It's thundering. It's going to rain. This wave of rain seems to be very heavy. It will be a pouring rain. Shan Yu Yu Lai Feng Man Lu, Hei Yan Ya Cheng Cheng Yu Kui. New York. Inside a meeting room of S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Egg, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and other agents stood there, each with a set of documents in their hands. Because of the heat, Black Widow opened her collar a little. She said, Hawkeye, go and check the window. It's too hot today. Hawkeye said speechlessly, if you're hot, why don't you open it yourself? Black Widow smiled and didn't say anything. Hawkeye went to open the window. There was a rumbling sound of thunder outside. He said, it looks like it's going to rain soon. Black Widow nodded, indeed, I guess it's going to be a heavy rain this time. Black Egg looked at the documents and said, did you see it? Strack from Hydra has mobilized a considerable amount of power and is frantically searching for the vibranium dealer, Claw. Hill nodded, I saw it. Claw didn't follow some secret agreements with Strack, and he also stole something from Strack. So Strack got furious and is trying to capture Claw. Hawkeye also nodded. Black Egg didn't respond to Hill's words and there was a moment of silence in the room. Black Widow broke the silence and looked at Black Egg, do you think there's something fishy about this? Black Egg nodded expressionlessly, yes, I don't think it's that simple. A guy who sells vibranium shouldn't cause such a big stir. Hill spoke, maybe Strack was indeed angered, causing him to lose some rationality and ultimately leading to this situation. Black Egg said, there is a small possibility, but it's very unlikely. Black Widow frowned slightly, do you think Strack's actions are for that person? Black Egg nodded, you should have read Shu Luo's information before. You should know the situation. He paused, previously, Strack sent out a large number of people to search, and their target was Shu Luo. This time, with such a large-scale manhunt, I suspect they found Shu Luo's address from Claw's mouth. In their eyes, there should be some kind of strong connection between Claw and Shu Luo. Their real goal is not to capture Claw, but to find Shu Luo. To find that seemingly ordinary but mysterious Shu Luo. Black Egg placed the documents on the table, pressed his hands against the table, and looked at the others. He said, I have a premonition that this hidden and elusive figure, Shu Luo, whom we have been unable to track, will appear in this incident. He will likely encounter Hydra's elite forces, so he is very likely to be captured by Hydra. And we must prevent this from happening. We absolutely cannot let Shu Luo fall into the hands of Hydra. If Hydra has put in so much effort to find Shu Luo, it means that Shu Luo must have huge amounts of value. It is enough to compensate for the long and extensive search, even far exceeding the losses. Imagine how valuable Shu Luo must be. If Hydra obtains him, their power will greatly strengthen, which is extremely disadvantageous for us. Black Widow nodded, I understand. You want us to closely monitor Hydra's actions. If Shu Luo appears and is at a disadvantage, in a predicament, we will intervene to help him escape. Black Egg nodded. Next, your task is to keep an eye on Hydra's movements. Everyone nodded. Hill also nodded. I will issue the orders and have a portion of SHIELD agents specifically monitor Strucker's elite forces. Black Egg snapped his fingers. Very well, go and do it. The group quickly left the meeting room to accomplish their objectives. Meanwhile, the orders were also issued. A portion of SHIELD's forces also moved out to monitor the elite forces dispatched by Strucker. Hydra and SHIELD, two massive organizations, began to take action. A storm of huge proportions began to brew, and the center of this storm was an unknown individual, someone completely unknown to the world. And all of this revolved around a person named Shu Luo. At this moment, the man who stirred up the storm was in the basement of his own house, looking at the materials brought back before him. At this moment, the ninja had already awakened, and Shu Luo had relieved the effects of the neurotoxin. However, Shu Luo had taken some measures. For example, he had tied the other person to the operating table. He had also taken some measures in the other person's mouth, mainly to prevent him from biting his tongue and committing suicide. After all, Shu Luo only had this one captive now, he couldn't let him die. At least not before he completed his mission. Shu Luo got straight to the point. I want to ask you some things. We can go through the procedure. I ask, you refuse. I use torture, you answer. Or I can just go straight to using torture. Shu Luo's expression was extremely serious, as if he was talking about something very normal and expected. The ninja looked at Shu Luo's appearance and inexplicably felt a chill in his heart. He felt that the person in front of him didn't seem like a normal person. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Shu Luo nodded slightly. Forget it. The procedure is too troublesome. Let's just go straight to it. After saying that, he raised his hand, holding a surgical knife gleaming with cold light, and an extremely sharp steel needle. Just looking at them sent chills down one's spine. Shu Luo acted directly. He was extremely fast, and the two steel needles smashed into the upper groove of the ninja's eye sockets, directly piercing the trigeminal nerve. Immediately, a scream of extreme agony rang out. The ninja trembled in pain. I'll talk. I'll talk. Shu Luo spoke. Then speak. The ninja was on the verge of collapse. Ask your questions. Shu Luo coughed. I didn't quite understand the procedure when I went straight to it for the first time. The ninja felt that the other party was deliberately messing with his state of mind. The other party was a madman. Shu Luo then asked, how do you ninjas manage to suppress your voices, even the sound of your heartbeat? We use secret techniques that can greatly suppress all body sounds, including the sound of the heartbeat. Through this secret technique, we slow down and lighten the heartbeat, making it impossible for others to hear. Immediately, the ninja, like a falling bean, revealed the secret technique of concealing sound. At the same time, Shu Luo also learned the name of this secret technique. The technique of concealing sound. This technique also requires a special breathing method. However, it does not require entering a meditative state. Just by using a special breathing method, it greatly enhances a person's control over their body. At the same time, in this breathing method, the body enters a special state, where movements become extremely light, and the sound of the heartbeat becomes almost inaudible. But there is still a slight sound of breathing. In addition to this slight flaw of having a sound of breathing. During battle, one must not exert too much force, it must be light enough. Otherwise, it will break the state of concealing sound. This move is suitable for stealth and assassin-like ambushes. Immediately, Shu Luo demonstrated it to the other party. After confirming that the other party had indeed entered the state of concealing sound and testing that they were not lying using an instrument, Shu Luo began to try it himself. He started to try that breathing method. Soon, he entered the state of concealing sound described by the ninja. He could clearly feel his heartbeat slowing down and could precisely control his body, and his movements became light and soundless. A very strange state. After obtaining this technique of concealing sound, it would be much easier for him to ambush others. This made him quite happy. The ninja felt Shu Luo immediately enter the state of concealing sound, causing his breathing to pause and his body to tremble slightly. What kind of monster is this person in front of him? He had never seen someone learn the technique of concealing sound so quickly. Even in the history of the Hand Association, there had never been someone who learned the complex breathing method of concealing sound in one breath. The ninja's voice trembled. Who are you? Shu Luo exited the state of concealing sound and said, just a normal person. Shu Luo's words directly silenced the ninja. He swore that if this person in front of him was a normal person, then there were no abnormal people in the world. Shu Luo continued to ask, "Do you know any other secret techniques, similar to the technique of concealing sound?" The ninja shook his head, "I don't know any others. The secret techniques of the hand association are generally held by the higher-ups or the leader. We ninjas only need to learn the technique of concealing sound and master combat skills. Of course, there are trusted ninjas among the higher-ups who may know a bit of secret techniques, but ordinary ninjas like us do not know them." Hearing this, Shu Luo felt a little regretful. After all, he wanted to take advantage of the hand association. Shu Luo nodded, "I want to know what abilities the demons and beasts you worship possess." Upon hearing this, the ninja said, "Actually, we don't know much either. We only know that it can give us more powerful strength. Furthermore, if it possesses a person, it will make them exceptionally strong. In terms of strength, it far surpasses ordinary people, even those superheroes. However, the person possessed does not initially have such powerful strength. There is an integration process between them. During this process, the possessed person is not very strong. At most, they enhance their strength a bit and learn some secret techniques." The ninja explained everything he knew in detail. Shu Luo continued to ask, "How long does this integration process take?" "Shortest is a few months, longest is a year." After learning this, Shu Luo nodded. Shu Luo asked more questions about the hand association. After asking the question, Shu Luo tested the ninja. After examining the other person's body, it had completely returned to normal, without any traces of enhancement detected. "It seems that the examination has been enhanced. Alright, then you can just be an ordinary material." After saying that, Shu Luo left. He had to go and complete the remaining engineering of the extraordinary spider sequence genome. Upon hearing that Shu Luo wanted him to be a material, the ninja did not understand the meaning behind it. He didn't know what Shu Luo was talking about. But this guy in front of him was a madman, and what he said was definitely not something good. At this moment, the ninja only felt a slight chill down his spine, a trace of fear of the unknown enveloping his soul. If possible, he would prefer to die immediately. But the other party restricted all his self-destructive actions. He couldn't die even if he wanted to. At this moment, he suddenly envied those comrades who had died. He envied that they had all died and didn't need to face this madman. Fear grew stronger and stronger, and the ninja began to struggle desperately, trying to escape from this situation, but the restraints were too strong. In the room, struggling sounds could be heard. Shu Luo returned to his own biological laboratory. He began his research again, continuing to screen and match the sequence genomes suitable for his extraordinary spider. His brain started spinning wildly. His hands were also moving rapidly, performing the final operations. He quickly carried out the screening and recombination. Under great pressure, Shu Luo was almost fully unleashed. The progress of the project further accelerated. Based on the current speed of progress, by tomorrow morning, he would be able to develop his own spider ability. On a country road, a black sedan was speeding along. And inside the car were Claude and his daughter. Perhaps because her father was a super criminal involved in selling valuable items, Claude's daughter also inherited his fearless personality. So Elizabeth remained very calm, not showing any signs of fear even during their escape. Although her face was pale and lacking color, her eyes were still bright, looking at the road receding behind them. Just at this moment, ding! Claude's phone received a message. At this time, who would send a message? Claude murmured. He opened the message. It was an anonymous email. "Come to New York. I will help you deal with the Hydra chasing you." The sender did not leave a name, but Claude understood that it was from Shu Luo. Looking at the message, Claude's body trembled slightly. He didn't expect Shu Luo to actually intervene for them and confront the formidable Hydra. In addition, from the short sentence, Claude sensed a feeling of calmness and stability. He seemed to see Shu Luo saying this sentence with great composure and strength. Claude understood Shu Luo, knowing that he was not someone who spoke without thinking. On the contrary, he was extremely meticulous. If the other party said there was someone who could deal with the Hydra chasing them, then the other party could definitely do it. If someone else said such a thing, he would just laugh it off and ignore it. But if it was Shu Luo, he firmly believed that the other party could do it. Just because his name was Shu Luo, the promise made by Shu Luo would definitely be fulfilled. The reason Claude had been investing in Shu Luo was because Shu Luo gave him a different feeling, as if there was a strange magic about him. It was a kind of magic that made people believe he could do anything. The reason Claude trembled was because he saw a turning point. Immediately, Claude quickly turned the car around and headed towards New York. At this moment, a glimmer of light returned to his eyes. At this moment, Elizabeth, who was beside him, asked, "Dad, what's wrong? Why did we suddenly change direction?" Claude replied, "Because someone is coming to rescue us. We're going to meet him now." Elizabeth's eyes widened slightly, her voice crisp. "Really?" Claude smirked. "Your big brother, Shu Luo." Upon hearing this, Elizabeth widened her eyes. "Didn't you say that big brother couldn't solve our big problem?" Claude replied, "I used to think that, but now it seems that your big brother has become even more powerful." Elizabeth's eyes sparkled. "So, can we see big brother again?" Elizabeth really misses him. Upon hearing his daughter's voice, Claude's mouth twitched. "Shouldn't we be happier that the trouble might be resolved? Why focus on other things?" Claude was speechless. His daughter was truly a devoted fan of Shu Luo. He smiled and said, "Yes, I believe we will be able to see him soon." Just as he said these words, a car rushed out from a diagonal road and headed straight towards Claude. Seeing this, Claude's eyes suddenly sharpened. He understood that it must be people from Hydra. These guys were tracking him relentlessly, making it impossible for him to escape. He quickly stepped on the gas pedal and shifted gears to the maximum. Boom. The car sped away. But then, the passenger window of the car was rolled down, and a head popped out, holding a gun. The person aimed at the car's tires in front and launched an attack directly. Claude quickly maneuvered the car, constantly evading the opponent's powerful attacks. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets hit the ground. Sparks splattered everywhere. With his excellent driving skills, Claude dodged bullet after bullet. Just as he was preparing to take out his gun and fight back. Bang. The opponent's bullet hit, directly blowing up one of Claude's car tires. The car immediately lost control and crashed into a nearby tree. The car's airbags also deployed. Because Claude was hit, he suffered more serious injuries. There was a large wound on his forehead, and blood kept flowing out. At the same time, he felt like his whole body was falling apart. Elizabeth was luckier, with almost no injuries. However, she had a slight scrape on her forehead and her whole body was in pain. Elizabeth was very sensible and didn't scream at all. She just covered her slightly buzzing head with her small hand. Then she spoke, "Dad, are you okay?" Claude shook his dizzy head and said, "I'm fine, just a minor problem." At this moment, the Hydra car quickly stopped by the roadside, and the person holding the gun slowly approached Claude. Seeing this, Claude quickly pressed down on Elizabeth's body and said, "Get down, I'll deal with them." Then, enduring the pain all over his body, he opened the car door and got out, reaching for the back of the car. Inside the car, Elizabeth hunched over and muttered to herself, "Big brother said that Dad and I will be fine, we'll be fine, Dad won't be in danger." Claude quickly drew his gun from his waist and loaded it. He then extended the gun out and fired several shots at the enemy. Finally, he killed one person on the spot. The other person quickly retaliated with gunfire. Claude quickly pulled back his hand, and the bullets hit the spot where his hand had just been, sparking. After the opponent fired a burst of shots, he quickly went out again and fired several shots at the enemy. Killing the enemy. "My car is no longer usable." So, Clara took little Yi and got on the enemy's car, enduring the pain, and continued to flee towards New York. This scene of being constantly chased and injured has been playing out on this road of escape. Elizabeth sat in the driver's seat, her face pale, her eyes looking into the distance, shining brightly. "Big brother, you will definitely save Dad and Elizabeth, right?" Her tightly held little hand also indicated that the little girl was actually afraid. The next morning, after staying up all night, Shu Luo pressed the final button. Suddenly, inside the computer screen, groups of information began to rapidly combine and turned green, while unlocking symbols appeared one by one. Groups of sequence genomes were successfully matched. The data kept refreshing and unlocking. Finally, all the information was combined. The entire screen was filled with green, without a hint of red indicating failure. A box popped up. "Ding! Your extraordinary spider sequence genome has completed the final match. Successfully unlocked your extraordinary spider sequence genome." Seeing this, Shu Luo shouted excitedly, clenched his fists, his eyes filled with joy. "I finally completed it. Matching over 10,000 kinds, countless spider genomes, I finally found the one that matches me the most. I finally completed my own extraordinary spider sequence genome." Shu Luo stood up excitedly. "Next, I will edit the sequence genome into the extraordinary spider. The reason for editing it into the extraordinary spider is because it's the simplest way. Because Richard has already set the extraordinary spider as a biological gene editing device, there is no need for anything else. Just need to edit the genes into it, and the extraordinary spider can directly package the special sequence genome into a person's body." He immediately looked at the extraordinary spider beside him. He quickly began his actions. Once again, he started his gene editing. Because the extraordinary spider already has many genomes, he only needs to make some adjustments. He constantly used molecular scissors to reset the genes of the extraordinary spider, performing new targeted mutations. Shu Luo was fully focused, carefully carrying out the targeted mutations. As time passed, targeted mutations constantly succeeded. The difficulty of this gene editing was much lower than the previous one with Wolverine. Finally, Shu Luo completed all the targeted mutations, and his extraordinary spider sequence genome was completed. Looking at the extraordinary spider in front of him, he took a deep breath. He finally created his spider ability. Next, he will inject it into his own body. At this moment, Shu Luo felt a mixture of anxiety, excitement, and anticipation. He swallowed his saliva and held his breath. Then he reached out his hand towards the extraordinary spider. Immediately, the extraordinary spider crawled onto Shu Luo's hand. Shu Luo could clearly feel the spider crawling on his hand, fuzzy and slightly ticklish, but he quickly got used to it. After all, it's just a spider, there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, the spider can't pose any threat to him at all. In the past, he was afraid of venomous snakes and spiders because he feared death and their toxicity. When they couldn't harm him, Shu Luo no longer felt fear. He treated them as ordinary animals. He nervously stared at the spider, observing its every move. Shu Luo murmured, "Bite." As a result, the spider just stayed on Shu Luo's hand without moving. After a while, it even started spinning silk. Seeing this, Shu Luo's eye twitched. This spider is crazy. He immediately shook his hand, throwing the spider off, and then he used his hand to hit the spider a few times. As a result, the spider seemed to enjoy it and rubbed its head against Shu Luo's hand. Shu Luo saw this scene, widened his eyes, and gritted his teeth. This guy is really crazy. If the extraordinary spider didn't bite him, he wouldn't be able to inject the sequence genome into his body. Then he wouldn't be able to obtain spider strength. If he were to create a new serum containing the sequence genome, it would require a lot of effort, far more than putting the genes into a spider. Because he would need to edit more genetic information. Looking at the strange little Spider-Man in front of him, Shu Luo smirked. He lowered his head slightly and, through the glass, fiercely threatened the extraordinary spider. "Bite me quickly. If you don't bite me, I'll cook and eat you." The little Spider-Man seemed to be frightened by Shu Luo's appearance or tone, trembling all over. Seeing this scene, Shu Luo couldn't help but laugh. The creature he created this time was quite intelligent. Just as Shu Luo was feeling a bit troubled, the little Spider-Man cautiously approached Shu Luo and opened its mouth. But instead of biting directly, it observed Shu Luo's reaction. Shu Luo saw this and his eyes lit up. "Yes, quickly bite me." It seemed to understand Shu Luo's words. The little Spider-Man bit Shu Luo's hand. In an instant, the packaged sequence genome entered Shu Luo's body and quickly integrated into his cells, starting to compatibly integrate. In an instant, Shu Luo felt a bit dizzy and his body started to feel hot and cold. Shu Luo understood that his body was starting to integrate spider ability. His body was adapting to this change. He pulled back his hand, sat on the chair, closed his eyes tightly, and began to adapt to the changes in his body. Inside the glass box, the little Spider-Man lay on the glass, curiously observing Shu Luo outside, with a hint of concern and doubt in its eyes. For the little Spider-Man, Shu Luo made it feel an inexplicable sense of closeness. Perhaps it was because it originally had strong physical qualities and resistance. Shu Luo felt his head becoming increasingly dizzy and heavy, and soon fell asleep. During Shu Luo's sleep, his body began to undergo rapid changes. Evolving rapidly, constantly strengthening, its strength and resistance constantly rising, undergoing earth-shattering changes. At the same time, a special ability was also gestating within its body. The ability to climb walls, spider telepathy. While Shu Luo was sleeping, the little Spider-Man in the glass box kept staring at him. Eventually, it became too tired and curled up in a corner and fell into a deep sleep. Several hours later, on the chair, Shu Luo suddenly opened his eyes. I fell asleep?" Shu Luo muttered to himself. He recalled and realized that he had indeed fallen into a deep sleep. At the same time, his attention turned to his own body. At this moment, he felt a powerful force surging through his entire body. Incredibly strong, far surpassing anything he had experienced before. Shu Luo was delighted. Wow, this power is too strong. Shu Luo knew that the spider ability would bring him tremendous strength. But it was only when he truly experienced this power that he felt the impact it brought. It was too strong. Shu Luo clenched his fist. Indeed, it's the spider ability. Just obtaining the spider ability without any development already far surpasses the strength brought by the super soldier serum. Indeed, these two were completely different levels. This spider strength is worth all the effort I put into creating it. It's really amazing. Shu Luo paused. Next, I need to test how much tonnage my initial spider ability has brought me. After saying that, he stood up, with a crack. The floor tiles were instantly crushed under his feet. Upon seeing this, Shu Luo's mouth twitched slightly. Because he had just gained too much power, he hadn't fully familiarized himself with its strength yet. With a casual step, he directly cracked the basement tiles. The sound of the tiles being crushed instantly woke up the sleeping little Spider-Man. It woke up abruptly, quickly raising its head and looking around vigilantly. Soon, it saw Shu Luo who had awakened, as well as the broken glass tiles on the ground. Seeing this, little Spider-Man tilted its head slightly in confusion, looking at Shu Luo. Shu Luo took a deep breath, then carefully restrained his power and walked out of the laboratory towards the equipment room. Seeing Shu Luo leave, little Spider-Man tilted its head in confusion, then quickly shrunk back and continued to sleep soundly. Inside the equipment room, there was a wall made of alloy iron. This was a power tester specifically made by Shu Luo for Spider-Man's abilities. It could test strength up to 30 tons. Shu Luo clenched his fist. Based on his observation of Gwen Spider's abilities, Spider-Man's initial strength was only a little over 10 tons. He should be within this range as well. He looked at the alloy iron wall and tightened his fists. Then he took a deep breath, and threw a punch. Bang. A loud noise. The basement was specially soundproofed by Shu Luo. So this loud noise couldn't penetrate the equipment room at all. He immediately looked at the screen. 15 tons. He threw another punch. Boom. Another loud noise. The numbers on the screen jumped from 0 again and finally stopped at the same number. Seeing this, Shu Luo's eyes were filled with joy. The initial strength of my spider ability is 15 tons. With my current strength, I have surpassed most superheroes on Earth. After injecting the super soldier serum, my strength was probably around 2 to 3 tons. After obtaining spider strength, it increased by 6 or 7 times. Shu Luo squeezed his fist. With my current strength, I can easily suppress several winter soldiers working together. Furthermore, I can now feel a huge amount of improvement in my reaction ability and speed. Now, I have truly undergone a tremendous change. As long as I don't do anything stupid, it will be very difficult to kill me now. Next, I just need to familiarize myself with my power. Otherwise, when it comes to fighting, I might stumble and fall. Next, I can face Hydra's elite forces, the army, and the Winter Soldier. Even with my current strength, I still need to be very cautious, or I might end up in a disaster. Although he now possessed Wolverine's abilities and was not easily killed. If he fought endlessly and constantly got injured, he would eventually lose consciousness. Moreover, constant injuries would also deplete his self-healing factor, and the cultivation of the self-healing factor also required a process. If he depleted his self-healing factor, then he would also die. Just like the old Wolverine, eventually dying because his self-healing factor dried up and he couldn't heal himself. Shu Luo said, after dealing with Hydra's affairs, I still need to find a way to quickly develop my spider ability. To develop it to the limit as soon as possible, to reach the 500 tons that the early Hulk despises. So Shu Luo began to familiarize himself with his ability. Once he was familiar with it, it would be the time for him to step out of the laboratory, leave New York, and meet the Klaus father and daughter. At the same time, it would also be the time for him to resolve some conflicts with Hydra. Boom. Shu Luo punched a specific alloy sandbag.